Chapter 224. The people in the concert hall were all their own people and each of them was a master. Su Qianxi blushed at the compliment. Really good. Song Yifan walked over. How long have you been studying? 3 years, 4 years? Of course it was learned by the previous generation. To be able to reach this level after learning for 3 to 4 years, talent. As expected of. The zither player chuckled and looked around but she didn't point it out. Everyone around her knew what she meant. Song Yifan heard what the violinist said and blushed. Another one? Let's play together. All right. After one song, Song Yifan and Su Qianxi had a tacit understanding, as if they had worked together before. It was hard to believe that they were in sync. All right. The violinist clapped her hands. That's great. If it wasn't for the fact that Brother Song isn't married, I would have thought that you were his daughter. Su Qianxi heard that and glanced at Song Yifan. Don't talk nonsense. Although he said that, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. It was obvious that he liked to hear this. Everyone present knew Song Yifan very well. Someone immediately shouted, now that you mention it, it does look like him, especially the shape of the face and the shape of the mouth. Yes, it really does look like it. Look at this, doesn't it look like the photo in Brother Song's wallet? Yes, could it be? Everyone turned to look at Zhang Xian. Su Qianxi smiled and did not speak. Afraid that she would be upset, Song Yifan said, don't say that. Her mother's surname is Su. Follow my mother's surname? Where's your dad? Song Yifan glared at someone who had a big mouth. She didn't care and said frankly, I don't have a father. My mother left me at the gate of the orphanage when I was a child. Ah, so miserable. That's great. You don't have a father. Brother Song has always wanted a daughter. Why don't you take him as your godfather? Bah, your godfather. Don't you know that godfather is very ambiguous nowadays? Our Brother Song is a very good person. If you want to call someone, you should call him godfather. Come, call me godfather. Call him godfather, call him godfather. The jeering got louder and louder. Song Yifan was a bit annoyed and said, that's enough. Qianxi is my guest this time. The concert is about to begin. Stop making a scene. Yes? Does that mean they will perform on stage? Someone's eyes lit up and asked. Qianxi's violin skills are no worse than Anna's. Why don't you try? What do you think, Qianxi? Looking at them, Su Qianxi was a bit nervous. Will it bring you trouble? I'm afraid I can't do it well. Moreover, in this kind of occasion, shouldn't it be especially important? If this thing was destroyed by her, what should she do? No, don't be nervous. When the time comes, just follow my rhythm. The violinist said with a face full of righteousness. Don't worry, you're pretty good. I have high hopes for you. To be honest, she also wanted to give it a try. Even in his dreams. In her past life, it was impossible for her to have such an opportunity. Now, should she seize it? It's okay. Song Yifan looked at her. If you are nervous, don't go on stage today. There is a public performance tomorrow morning. I'll go. Su Qianxi blushed, her eyes sparkling. I want to give it a try. Can I? Seeing the nervousness and desire in her eyes, Song Yifan smiled and naturally reached out to rub her head like he was coaxing a child. Silly girl, of course. Chapter 225. The intimate gesture made Su Qianxi's neck stiffen. Looking up, she saw Song Yifan's eyes shining with love. He really treated her as his daughter. Su Qianxi felt something hit her heart. An indescribable feeling slowly spread from the depths of her heart to her eyes. Father. A strange name. She had been longing for it for more than 20 years. Su Qianxi did not resist his gesture and nodded. Seeing such a scene, everyone looked at each other and smiled. No one dared to say anything more. In the concert hall of the Capital Grand Theater, the audience was all senior leaders and ambassadors from other countries. After listening to the performance, there was a thunderous applause. Su Qianxi could hear everyone praising Song Yifan even when she was backstage. Was such a person really her father? In October, it was a bit cold in Kingstown at night. After Li Weiya and Tang Mengqing finished the hot pot, they walked back to their dorm, talking and laughing. Suddenly, Tang Mengqing received a call. I am in the woods on the left side of the school. Come here. Someone. Tang Mengqing heard it and turned around. Weiya, you go back first. I have something to do. But it's almost time. You go back first? It's fine. Okay. Li Weiya turned around, but the more she thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. It was so late. Did Tang Mengqing have a boyfriend again? Last time, her miscarriage had caused a stir in several families in the school, which had greatly damaged her reputation. She had tried so hard to suppress it and she hoped that it would not go wrong again. Thinking about it, Li Weiya still followed her. In case she did not get along with the boy, she could go up and make peace with him. Unexpectedly, after Tang Mingqing walked into the woods, she sneaked up to a van. The van looked very ordinary, but for a girl from a rich family like Li Weiya, it was a bit shabby. Tang Mingqing's boyfriend turned out to be this kind of person? What a lack of self-respect. Li Weiya was a bit angry, followed her, and found that Tang Mingqing had gotten into the van. The window of the passenger seat was not closed. When Li Weiya was hiding next to the van, she heard a familiar voice. Ask Li Weiya to give this to Su Qinxi. Tang Mingqing? How could it be her? If she wanted to see Tang Mingqing, did she have to be so sneaky? Tang Mingqing asked, Lipstick? Why did you give her lipstick? That bitch is so disgusting. This is a mixture of aphrodisiac. As long as she puts it on, it will inevitably go into her mouth. The effect time is about an hour, and I am afraid the press conference is only halfway through. If she does a striptease in front of everyone, don't you think it will be wonderful? Tang Mingqing's voice was cold and resentful. Her vicious words made Li Weiya shrink slightly. Li Weiya was stunned. Tang Mingqing usually looked gentle and pretty, and she was very nice to people. Moreover, wasn't her relationship with second cousin brother very good? Why did he want to harm second sister-in-law? The information contained in these words was too much for her to handle, and it was too terrifying. Tang Mingqing was a bit excited. Really? My gosh, sister, you are so awesome. I wonder what Su Qinxi will do. If she really loses face in front of those distinguished guests, even old man Li won't be able to protect her. Chapter 226. The last concert was in the morning. After promising Song Yifan that she would go on stage, Su Qinxi got up early and put on some light makeup. She picked out a dress that she could wear to the event. Su Qinxi thought that today's concert would be similar to the one last night. However, when she arrived, she realized that it was a music conference. The people who came were all musicians that Su Qinxi had only seen on TV and in the news in her previous lifetime. So many big shots. When Su Qinxi followed Song Yifan's band in, she felt like she was dreaming. Song Yifan greeted them one by one. Many foreign friends gave him warm hugs and kissed him on the cheek. Many people noticed Su Qinxi's face. Song Yifan only said that she was a young man and wanted to broaden his horizons. However, inadvertently, Su Qinxi seemed to feel someone looking at her. Looking sideways, she found it was another acquaintance. It was a tall man wearing a sapphire suit and a ruby bow tie. His tall figure strode over, looking gentle and elegant. Long time no see, Mrs. Li, Bo Xiao? Su Qinxi was a bit surprised but soon felt relieved. Bo Xiao had already made a name for himself in the music conference. Since even she could come, why couldn't he? Mrs. Li, you still remember me. I am honored. Bo Xiao raised his glass and looked at Song Yifan. Mr. Song, so you two know each other. Song Yifan's kind smile faded the moment he saw Bo Xiao. I did not expect that you two know each other. I've met him once. Song Yifan curled his lips and said, not a good thing. Rarely seeing Song Yifan so sharp, Su Qinxi could not help but look at him a few more times. Bo Xiao spread his hands and looked innocent, but he still maintained a gentleman's smile. It seems that Mr. Song has some misunderstanding about me. May I know why? Song Yifan did not speak, but the female violinist next to him said in a slightly dissatisfied voice, I heard that Mr. Bo already has a fiancé, but you still have a girlfriend. This really makes people doubt your style. Su Qinxi is married and I hope you can behave yourself. Bo Xiao felt a little innocent. A helpless smile flashed across his deep, dark brown eyes. I'm so wronged. Has the outside world already spread rumors about me to such an unbearable level? Mrs. Li. Bo Xiao, you are here. A pretty figure came up and took Bo Xiao's arm. I have been looking for you for a long time. You. When the girl saw Su Qinxi, she paused and her eyes darkened. Su Qinxi was a bit scared, but she still nodded with a smile. So you have friends? The exchange is about to begin. Let's go back to our seats. Bo Xiao looked down at the girl beside him. His eyes were no different from when he looked at other people. He replied lightly, okay. Then he raised his eyes and introduced, this is my fiancée Rong Anna. Rong Anna greeted everyone with a smile, but when she looked at Su Qinxi, she. Chapter 227. Bo Xiao glanced at her and said softly, my dear, it's an illusion. Rong Anna frowned, turned around, and found that Su Qinxi was surrounded by a group of people. With a smile on her face and light makeup, her facial features looked more delicate and soft, like the girl next door. Seeming to feel that Rong Anna was looking at her, Su Chenxi quickly followed her gaze and smiled at her. Rong Anna raised an eyebrow and chuckled. It's really an illusion. They do look a bit similar, but there are many people who look like this. It is inevitable that you will have this illusion. Yes. At the music conference, many famous artists would perform on stage. While playing, Su Chenxi could not help but feel nervous. Before they went on stage, it was Bo Xiao. Bo Xiao and Rong Anna went on stage together. Bo Xiao was playing the piano and Rong Anna was playing the violin. The song was melodious and meaningful. It was one of Bo Xiao's favorite songs. Obviously, the cooperation with Rong Anna was not so good, because Su Chenxi had heard him play better. Finally, it was their turn. Su Chenxi's mind was blank the whole time. Originally, she was worried that she would be embarrassed because of nervousness. Fortunately, the audience was very enthusiastic, and no one seemed to notice her sudden appearance. The conference soon ended, and Song Yifun's band undoubtedly became the hottest topic. Su Chenxi silently hid behind Song Yifun, quietly being a beautiful woman. After saying goodbye to the famous artists at the airport, she was able to get on the plane back to Kingstown. Today was October 14th. We are back. We will arrive at Kingstown at 5 p.m. Yes, according to the original plan. Out of the airport, Su Chenxi declined Song Yifun's offer to take her back and stood at the gate, waiting for Yang. However, 10 minutes later he had not arrived yet. Su Chenxi's phone rang. It turned out that the car had broken down for some reason and could not move on the highway. Su Chenxi had to find a taxi herself. The airport was not far from the villa area, only half an hour's drive. However, the driver took her for more than 40 minutes. Seeing the increasing amount on the meter, Su Chenxi suddenly understood something. Sir, please hurry up. It's too late. Okay. In the end, the driver did not take her home but left her at the intersection a few streets away from the villa area. The reason was that he ran out of gas. She was annoyed and angry. Dragging her suitcase, she resigned herself to her fate and walked home. It was already past 6 o'clock in the evening. It was the beginning of autumn and the sky darkened earlier and earlier. Su Chenxi walked back and it was already dusk. It was dinner time and there were not many people on the street. As she walked, she felt someone was following her. His footsteps paused for a moment as he looked back. There was nothing out of the ordinary. She turned back and continued, but the feeling became stronger. Su Chenxi became vigilant, picked up her phone, and dialed 110 ready for any emergency. Dragging her luggage, when she turned the corner, she suddenly felt a rush of breath behind her. Then she was hugged and the strong smell of alcohol hit her. Su Chenxi at Hua. At Su and Chio King Su and Chi and at. Chapter 228. Su Chenxi was pushed to the ground, and her white and delicate skin was quickly scratched. Hearing the clanking sound of the belt, Su Chenxi was even more shocked. What did he want to do? She couldn't be so unlucky. Enduring the pain, Su Chenxi got up from the ground and rushed to the entrance of the alley. However, the drunkard's reaction was extremely fast. Dragging her by her clothes, he threw her into the alley. The alley was very dirty and there were glass shards on the ground. Su Chenxi was thrown into the alley, feeling a burning pain on her back. However, Su Chenxi reacted quickly. Picking up a larger piece of glass next to her, she threw it at the man. Get out of my way. The drunkard's face was red, and his face was covered with a long beard. His clothes looked a bit old and white. Seeing the long piece of glass in Su Chenxi's hand, he chuckled. Little girl, you are so tasty. His voice was dry and hoarse as if he had not drunk water for decades. It was extremely unpleasant to hear. Slowly approaching, Su Chenxi's body trembled and her voice trembled. Don't come any closer. If you come any closer, I will kill you. Every woman says that, but in the end they still get F***ed. Be good and I can be gentler. Su Chenxi was scared, trembling slightly. Waving the long piece of glass in her hand, she tried to drive him away. However, this drunkard was obviously a habitual offender. With a lewd smile, he suddenly jumped at her, not afraid of her glass at all. The long piece of glass pierced his arm and bright red blood suddenly flowed out. Su Chenxi screamed and quickly let go. However, the drunkard took the opportunity to take the glass away and put his stinky mouth on her. Su Chenxi almost threw up and screamed, "Help, get out of my way." Chen? A slightly puzzled voice came from outside, and it was extremely familiar to him. Han, help. Su Chenxi's voice was filled with tears. Pushing the drunkard away, she also stretched out her legs to resist his invasion. Su Chenxi's suitcase and cell phone were at the entrance of the alley. Louis Han immediately rushed in and saw a dirty back. His anger was ignited. Louis Han grabbed the man and flung him away. Then his fist landed on the man's face. However, the drunkard was obviously not a pushover. He quickly fought back and the two of them wrestled into a ball. Su Qianxi quickly got up and was shocked. For a moment she did not know what to do. Qianqiang, go first. Louis Han was punched hard and fell to the ground. Louis Han was a computer nerd, and there was no way he would be a match for this habitual rapist. She was so anxious that she was about to cry. Suddenly she had an idea. She found a long piece of glass and stabbed it at the drunkard. However, the drunkard glared at Louis Han and twisted him. He could clearly feel the glass piercing into someone else's flesh. Su Qianxi was so stiff that she could not feel anything, staring at the scene in front of her. Louis Han covered the side of his abdomen. Bright red blood kept dripping from the place he covered. Just above it there was a piece of glass sticking out, which was shocking to see. Seeing this, the drunkard was shocked. He pushed Louis Han away and ran away. As the drunkard ran away, Su Qianxi could not hold it anymore. Overwhelming fear swept over her, as if there was a hand pressing her to the ground. She did not know what to do. Chapter 229. She killed someone, and it was her best friend who had been killed. What to do, what to do? Su Qianxi's vision blurred. She opened her mouth trying to breathe, but her throat was choked. She did not know where she got the strength from, but she lifted Louis Han up and let him lean on her shoulder. Feeling his pain, Su Qianxi's heart was terribly empty. Tears kept flowing, blurring her vision. Hang in there. I'll take you to the hospital. Hang in there? Sobbing, she almost couldn't hold back and burst into tears. Nothing could happen to him, nothing could happen to him. However, before he reached the end of the alley, Louis Han could no longer support himself and fell down. Su Qianxi was dragged by his weight and fell uncontrollably, almost crushing him. Screaming, she finally couldn't hold it in and cried out, "Louis Han, don't die, you can't die." Louis Han covered his abdomen and said helplessly, "Silly, it's not my heart. I won't die. But it really hurts." Seeing that he was still in the mood to joke, Su Qianxi let out a sigh of relief. She wiped her tears and stood up. "I'll go get someone. Hang in there. Don't die, don't die." She quickly ran away. Louis Han's consciousness gradually blurred. Inadvertently, he seemed to see a figure standing by the window not far away, looking at him with a piercing gaze. It was already 10 minutes later when they arrived at the hospital. After some emergency treatment, Louis Han's life was no longer in danger. Fortunately, although the glass had pierced 3 centimeters into his abdomen, it just avoided his intestines and did not cause any irreparable damage. Hearing the news, Su Qianxi finally felt relieved. The phone rang. It was Li Xiqing. "Not home yet?" Li Xiqing's first sentence was. Su Qianxi looked at the time. It was already past 9 p.m. Nanny Rong had just called her 3 times, saying that she had something to do and asked her to get off work. She did not expect that the news had reached Li Xiqing. Hearing his voice, her heart, which had been frightened for a long time, suddenly calmed down. "Go back early. Nanny Rong is very worried about you." He was worried about her too. Su Qianxi pursed her lips, feeling wronged. She had so many things to say to him, but he was in the US. "When are you coming back?" Hearing the grievance in her voice, Li Xiqing curled his lips, feeling a little better after a few days of depression. He responded in a low voice and said calmly, "Tomorrow." "Are you still in New York?" "Yes, teacher has passed away. As his disciple, I should help him with his funeral arrangements." Old Mr. Sterry's funeral was today. Unfortunately, her meet and greet was tomorrow. It would take at least 12 hours to get from New York to Kingstown. That would be difficult. Thinking that he might not be able to make it back in time, he felt a bit guilty and added, "Have a good rest. I will try my best to be there for the press conference tomorrow night." "Oh." She was a bit disappointed. "Then I'll wait for you to come back." Diamond. Someone on the other side of the phone called his English name. "Okay," he answered. "Go back early and wait for me. When I get back, let's hold a wedding, how about it?" "Make up the wedding?" Su Qianxi was dazed, thinking that when she married him, it was just a simple dinner with 2 families, which was a bit shabby. However, she did not expect that it was Li Xiqing who brought it up first. She was ecstatic, but she pretended to be reserved. "Is that necessary?" "Yes, I want everyone to know that you are Li Xiqing's wife." Chapter 230. Li Xiqing's eyes were filled with affection. After saying goodbye and hanging up, he found there were 2 missed calls and a text message. It was from Tang Menjing. "How about we talk?" Li Xiqing ignored it, locked the screen and threw the phone away, turning around to continue his work. Lu Yihan's injury was not life-threatening, but it was not light either. After the surgery, Lu Yihan fell into a deep sleep. He was stabbed because he tried to save her. She could not leave him alone. However, after all, they were alone and she was married. It was definitely not a good decision to stay with him for one night. After looking around, she found his cell phone. He pressed the power button to light up the screen, and a gentle and beautiful face appeared on it. When she was in high school, she was a bit rustic. She had an afro and dyed her nails in various colors. She liked to put a piece of gum in her mouth and enjoyed being called Sister Qian. Only he dared to correct her with a normal point of view. She was very impatient at that time, but unconsciously, he changed her into a normal person. This was a photo of her when she was in the 3rd year of high school. Her eyebrows were still a bit immature and her chin was a bit chubby. Her hair was tied in a ponytail, and her eyes were not looking forward. The pixel was not high. 3 years ago, the pixel was not as high as today's. However, when was this photo taken? Su Qianxi was surprised to see her photo and looked at Lu Yihan on the bed. Without glasses, his facial features were clear. His slightly pale face was slightly slanted and his breathing was even. He would use her photo as his wallpaper. What did that mean? Su Qianxi vaguely felt that she was overthinking. She shook her head and swiped the screen, only to find a password. She had no choice but to wait for Lu Yihan to wake up. However, as she waited, she fell asleep. When she woke up, she was lying on the empty bed in the ward, covered with a blanket. She suddenly woke up and looked around. It was dim and the lights had been turned off. However, the light outside the window was breaking. She searched around and found her cell phone. It was already past 5 a.m. Oh my God! Su Qianxi exclaimed, waking up Lu Yihan in the next bed. He looked up. What's wrong? I actually slept here. She was very regretful. God, how could I fall asleep? Lu Yihan breathed a sigh of relief. I thought it was something important. She was a bit annoyed and quickly thought of something. She asked, why am I sleeping on the bed? Did you pick me up? Lu Yihan propped himself up with a look of disgust. I didn't expect that after so many years, you would gain weight again. You almost crushed me to death. F***ck. She couldn't help cursing. I'm only 94 pounds. I'm not that heavy. Oh, I thought you weighed 50 kilograms. Shut up. She quickly put on her shoes. Call your brother to take care of you. I have to go. I have a press conference today. Okay. Lu Yihan nodded, but he couldn't help but feel sorry. It wasn't easy for me to get on your good side, and I wanted to show my face at your press conference. I didn't expect that. I can't go now. There will be a chance. She rolled her eyes. Soon my husband will hold another big event for me. What occasion? Wedding. She felt sweet inside and deliberately kept him in suspense. I'm not telling you. I'm leaving. Seeing her leaving, Lu Yihan's eyes slightly dimmed, looking down at his cell phone. Chapter 231. The reception was very large, and the turmoil affected not only the people in the business circle, but also many people from the music festival, fashion industry, and social circles were invited. There was only one person in the whole of Kingstown who could invite so many big shots. In the whole country there were only a handful of people who could do so. Cheng Yu looked at the venue design that her boss had rushed to make overnight in the United States, changing it left and right, and was very busy. The venue was set in the new villa that Li Xiqing had just bought. In the newly developed territory of the Li family, it covered a large area and was luxuriously decorated. The ground was covered with a red carpet, surrounded by delicate and bright red roses, and bright colorful glass lamps hung around, shining and blurring. There were a lot of reporters around, ready to broadcast the luxurious status of the party live on TV news and Weibo headlines. When Su Qianxi was picked up by Yang, it was already afternoon. Many people of the Li family had already arrived, sitting in the living room and chatting. Sunny, the royal stylist, dragged Su Qianxi into the makeup room and began to get ready. Just when Sunny was dressing Su Qianxi, a small head poked in. Li Weiya smiled at Su Qianxi. Sister-in-law? Seeing it was Li Weiya, Su Qianxi smiled. Yes. Li Weiya walked in with a smile, and Su Qianxi saw another person behind her through the mirror. Tang Mengqing. Seeing Tang Mengqing, Su Qianxi looked unhappy. Li Weiya did not notice the strangeness of Su Qianxi. She took out a box from behind her and said, when I was shopping yesterday, I saw a lipstick color that was particularly suitable for you, so I bought it for you. You can use mine today. Lipstick? Sunny turned and looked over. What color? Let me see. Li Weiya handed the gift box to Su Qianxi. Sister-in-law, open it. Su Qianxi smiled. After opening the package, she found that it was a new international luxury brand. Sunny's eyes lit up. It does suit you. Come on, try it. Then she put the lipstick on Su Qianxi's lips. Tang Mingqing's eyes sparkled. Seeing Su Qianxi put on her lipstick, she was ecstatic. Su Qianxi inadvertently glanced at the mirror and clearly saw Tang Mingqing's eyes. Her heart sank and she felt something was wrong. Suddenly he dodged. Wait. Sunny was stunned. What's wrong? Strange. Tang Mingqing's eyes were filled with confusion. Su Qianxi looked at them, pursed her lips and pretended to say, Where did you buy this lipstick? Why does it smell weird? Will it? Sunny looked puzzled. No, it smells good. Don't you like it, second sister-in-law? Li Weiya seemed to be a little disappointed. I specially picked it. This color is especially suitable for you. Seeing Li Weiya like this, Su Qianxi felt sorry for her. For this little girl, Su Qianxi still liked her. I don't dislike it. It's very pretty. Then let's try it. Without saying anything, Sunny put it on Su Qianxi's mouth. After applying the lipstick, Sunny looked satisfied. Beautiful. Li Weiya shouted with amazement and envy in her eyes. Second sister-in-law is so beautiful. Don't you think so, Mingqing? Seeing the color on Su Qianxi's lips, Tang Mingqing couldn't help feeling excited. She nodded with a bright smile. Yes, very beautiful. The drama that they had prepared for so long was finally going to be released. Chapter 232. No matter how good Su Qianxi was, she would not be able to escape unscathed under such circumstances. At that time, even Li Xiqing would not be able to protect her. She would like to see how she could be so arrogant after today. Sunny did not notice Tang Mingqing's expression and kept talking to Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi, on the other hand, turned her head and saw the hatred in Tang Mingqing's eyes. No. Tang Mingqing's expression clearly said that she must have done something bad. Was there really something wrong with this lipstick? Su Qianxi licked it. It seemed to be a little better than regular lipstick. However, what was wrong? The person who gave it to her was Li Weiya. Li Weiya was a kind child. She would never hurt him, would she? Su Qianxi looked at Li Weiya and found that Li Weiya was looking at her with a smile. There was nothing strange. Feeling relieved, Su Qianxi let Sunny do the styling for her. Li Weiya glanced at it and was pulled out by Tang Mingqing. Weiya, the lipstick you gave to your sister-in-law was the one I gave you, right? Yes. You said that you were too embarrassed to give it to her yourself, so you asked me to do it. In fact, if you apologize to her yourself, she might forgive you. I was just scared. If she did not forgive me, I would be so embarrassed. Hearing that, Li Weiya saw Tang Mingqing's expression as usual and was extremely disappointed. She really thought of her as her best friend. When Mr. Saito was alive, he was a highly respected professor. Therefore, his funeral was attended by many people. After a series of procedures, Li Xiqing was so exhausted that he felt like he was going to fall apart. Checking the time from time to time, he felt a bit anxious. Seeing him like this, his friends knew that he had other important things to do, so they asked him to take care of other things first. However, Li Xiqing never had this habit. After finishing the funeral, he had stayed up all night. Looking at his watch, it was past 8 a.m. I have to go now. I will leave the rest to you. Why are you in such a hurry? Did something happen to the company? He shook his head and smiled gently. My wife is still waiting for me at home. The student was shocked by the smile on Li Xiqing's face. Watching Li Xiqing walk away, his eyes fell on the documents he had finished overnight. *Ck. Superman? Rushing to the airport, he looked a bit tired after not having a good rest for 2 days and nights. However, thinking that Su Qianxi was still waiting for him, all the fatigue were swept away. Soon he would be home. There were still 12 hours to go. Ding dong. He received a MMS on his phone. The sender was an unknown number. Attached text. Take a look at what kind of person your wife is, staying out at night and sleeping with another man. Seeing this, Li Xiqing's eyes became even colder. Clicking on the download, it was a photo. In the dimly lit photo, Lu Yihan was wearing a hospital gown, looking at the girl on the bed tenderly, leaning over to kiss her. That girl, it was her. He had personally picked out this dress for her. She was wearing the dress he had given her, but she was with another man. His gaze shifted downwards. Time of filming, 2 a.m. Chapter 233. The party began at 7:00 p.m. The melodious and artistic music spread throughout the venue. The band was in the middle of the venue, very eye-catching. Isn't that song Yi fun? That's his personal musician and that. Oh my god, Li Xiqing actually invited this kind of band. That's amazing. Li Xiqing's ability is really beyond our imagination. The discussion became louder and louder, but many of them were experienced people. Although surprised by Li Xiqing's generosity, they did not make a fuss. Li Xiqing was not there, so everything was arranged by Cheng Yu and hosted by Captain Li. Many big shots that were hard to see in daily life appeared in the same place. The reporters around were excited and dedicated to reporting the scene. Suddenly the crowd let out a cry of surprise. Their gazes converged on a young and handsome man. He was holding the arm of a female companion as he walked in. A female classmate of Su Qianxi exclaimed excitedly, "Mr. O! That is O Ming, even more handsome than in the magazine. Who is the girl next to him?" Under the gaze of the people around, Yu Lily held O Ming's hand and smiled beautifully. Yu Lily quietly searched through the crowd, but she didn't see the figure she wanted to see. Frowning, she turned her head and found that O Ming was looking at her with a faint smile. Yu Lily's heart skipped a beat and quickly looked away, not daring to look at him. O Ming approached her slightly, his hot breath on the side of her face, and whispered, "Who are you looking for?" Yu Lily felt a little uncomfortable. It was as if he already knew what she was looking for. Straightening her face, Yu Lily quickly got rid of O Ming and said confidently, "I'm looking for Su Qianxi." O Ming's evil eyes slightly narrowed, raised his eyebrows and watched her gradually walk away. Yu Lily did not dare to relax until she walked into the inner room and saw Su Qianxi. She called, "Hi Qianqian." Su Qianxi was standing with her grandpa and talking to an elder. Hearing Yu Lily's voice, she turned her head and smiled. "Lily, you're here." "Aha." Yu Lily looked around. "Louis Han didn't come to your press conference?" She shook her head. "He was injured and is now in the hospital." Yu Lily was shocked and a little nervous. "Is he injured? Hit by a car? Or was he struck by lightning?" Su Qianxi briefly told her what had happened, which made Yu Lily scared. Suddenly Yu Lily frowned and said, "I don't think it's that simple. The place where you live is surrounded by high-end buildings. The place that Li Xiqing chose will never have that kind of person. Is it possible?" Yu Lily's words made Su Qianxi's heart sink. From yesterday until now, she only thought that her luck was a little bad. However, after her reminder, Su Qianxi suddenly realized something. The place where Louis Han lived was far away from her home, and Louis Han would never go to her home for no reason. So why did he go to that place? Yu Lily's words were like a key that connected all the things that had been bothering her for a long time. Chapter 234. However, even if she wanted to harm her, why did she do this? Did she not want her to attend the press conference today? Or did she want her to be raped by the drunkard? She was not only plotting against her but also against Louis Han? Louis Han's appearance was strange. She would have to ask him about it after the party was over. "Qianqian, it's time to go," Captain Li said. "Okay." Su Qianxi said goodbye to Yu Lily and walked in the direction of Grandpa. Yu Lily was a little worried. She picked up the phone, found Louis Han's cell phone and was about to call him. However, she felt a warm breath approaching her side. Yu Lily turned her head and saw a face that was familiar to her bones. Yu Lily was so scared that she took a step back. When she saw that it was O Ming, she shouted, "Asiba, are you crazy?" O Ming ignored her and stepped closer, squinting dangerously. "Who do you want to call?" Yu Lily felt a bit guilty. Straightening her back, she shouted, "It's none of your business. Your sister-in-law's press conference is about to begin. Go." Her footsteps were hurried, and O Ming was a little displeased as he watched her escape. The sound of the conversation was very loud. Song Yifun's band only played the opening song and then left, replaced by an ordinary band. People came and went, greeting each other. Suddenly the lights around gradually dimmed. Cheng Yu said with a smile, "Thank you for coming. Next, let's welcome our protagonists, Mrs. Li and Miss Su Qianxi." As soon as Cheng Yu's voice fell, everyone looked back. A young and beautiful woman walked into the hall with an old man's hand in hers. Everyone was amazed. Looking at the young girl, their eyes lit up. Today, Su Qianxi was wearing a light gold dress that trailed the floor. Right at the end of the skirt, there were bits and pieces of diamonds. Under the surrounding colorful glass lamps, they looked very dazzling. Her long hair was tied up, and a few strands fell on her forehead. Light makeup made her look smart and energetic. Stunning. Everyone had heard that Li Xiqing had a wife, and many even knew that his wife was very beautiful. However, they did not expect that his wife would be so beautiful. She could practically kill all the popular female stars in the entertainment industry. Captain Li Sun was very satisfied with the amazement that his granddaughter-in-law brought to the people around him. He raised his head proudly. Although his back was slightly hunched, he still looked very tall standing next to her. Holding her hand and walking to the stage, Captain Li took the microphone from her with a smile. "Thank you very much for coming. I am Li Xiqing's grandfather, Li Sun." At the scene, thunderous applause sounded. Back then Li Sun's military exploits were illustrious, and he was in the limelight. His lightning-fast methods were truly terrifying. Who wouldn't recognize his name? It was just that she didn't expect the ruthless character of the past to be so kind and benevolent in his old age. Unfortunately, Xiqing's teacher passed away in the United States. It happened so suddenly. We wanted to change the date, but considering your schedules, although old Master Li Sun was getting on in years, he was still able to speak clearly. Many of the older, successful people looked at Li Sun with respect. This was a true famous general who wore armor to protect his country. Chapter 235. Captain Li Sun not only represented the glory of the Li family, but also the existence that they had dreamed of in their childhood, a symbol of an era. It was this old man who spoke with a bit of humor, which made the audience laugh several times. Su Qianxi also smiled. Her delicate and soft facial features were lit up with a smile, stunning many people. He inadvertently glanced over and saw a fiery red figure appear below the stage. Tang Minjing was hiding in the crowd, holding a glass of juice in her hand. Seeming to notice Su Qianxi's gaze, Tang Minjing raised the glass and slightly tilted it to Su Qianxi. It was so nice to be treated like a goddess in front of so many people. The old man also treated her like a treasure. Judging from his attitude, Tang Minjing could tell that the old man liked Su Qianxi very much. However, so what? No matter how perfect a life was, there would be flaws. Tang Minjing slowly walked out of the crowd and went to a corner. In that corner was the equipment that controlled the sound system and the video on the stage. Tang Mingqing was already waiting inside. Seeing Tang Minjing coming in, she asked, "Sister, are you ready?" "Yes." Hearing Tang Minjing's response, Tang Mingqing was a bit excited, clenching her fists. "Later, Su Qianxi will definitely say something nice. After she finishes, we will put up the video and slap her in the face. At that time, even Li Xiqing will not be able to protect her." Hearing that, Tang Minjing's beautiful eyes were filled with resentment. Even if Li Xiqing is here, she is doomed to be ruined. "Ha ha ha, great." Tang Mingqing was overjoyed. "That woman has made me miserable. Not only is she hated by my father, but she also made me unable to hold my head up in school. I really don't know how such a woman married into the Li family. We are no match for this kind of woman." Tang Minjing gritted her teeth. She has the face of a vixen, but she is best at pretending to be innocent and weak, fooling everyone. I thought she was really stupid, but I did not expect that she was so cunning that she even schemed against me. "Don't be angry, sister. After today she will not be able to do anything. I saw her put on that lipstick with my own eyes. Wait a minute, hee, that will be interesting." Tang Minjing's face softened. Thinking of what would happen to Su Qianxi, she felt much better. She asked, "When did you put it on?" "It's about time. She's still on stage. Let's go take a look." When the sisters walked out of the control room, they did not notice a slender figure sneaking in. Yu Lily originally just wanted to find a corner to make a phone call. It wasn't easy for her to sneak out, but she accidentally heard such a conversation. "Video? The video that ruined Su Qianxi?" Yu Lily raised her eyebrows, put her hand on the mouse, and started typing on the computer. In other words, even if someone accidentally barged in, there was no need to worry about being seen. No wonder he was so relaxed. Unfortunately, Yu Lily majored in computer science. His fingers moved quickly, and after cracking the password, he quickly found the video, clicked on it, and played it. In the video, Su Qianxi was surrounded by several men. The quality was good, but the angle was not good, so it was obviously taken secretly. Those tall men pushed Su Qianxi to a corner. The man in the lead jumped at her, and the men behind him followed. Damn NPC? So exciting. Chapter 236. In the room on the screen, there were mirrors on all sides, which seemed to be a dance studio or something like that. Oh my god, several men at the same time? Su Qianxi was so good at playing. However, was Su Qianxi such a person? Su Qianxi had always been soft. She looked arrogant in high school, but in fact she bullied the weak and feared the strong. Later she became a good girl. Based on her personality, she was definitely not the type to play this kind of game. What's more, although she heard that Li Xiqing had a bad temper, he was rich and handsome. Why did he have to play this kind of game? Yu Lily shook her head and stared at the screen for a long time. From the details she could see that this video was edited. Then she looked down and the picture suddenly changed. It became a PowerPoint. The first picture was Su Qianxi chatting with Louis Han. The second picture was Su Qianxi smiling, and Louis Han's eyes under the rimless glasses were full of tenderness. The third picture was Louis Han and Su Qianxi sitting opposite each other. From the angle of the picture, it seemed that they were kissing. More than a dozen pictures eating, sitting opposite each other, playing. All the main characters were Louis Han. The smile on Yu Lily's face had completely disappeared, and her heart seemed to be in bursts of pain. So painful, she knew that Louis Han liked Su Qianxi. Yu Lily never knew. So in high school she often targeted her and bullied her. Despite this, the relationship between Su Qianxi and Louis Han was as strong and indestructible. Su Qianxi was insensitive and naive, thinking that it was friendship between them. But Yu Lily knew that for Louis Han it was not. The picture on the screen changed. Looking at the ambient light, it was evening. At the entrance of an alley, Su Qianxi helped Louis Han out, but suddenly, Louis Han pulled her down. On the screen Louis Han was safe and sound, and Su Qianxi seemed to exclaim. With one hand on his side, she hung over him, staring at him with her eyes wide open. A few strands of hair fell on Louis Han's face. The picture froze and the picture changed to a dim ward. Su Qianxi's eyes were closed and Louis Han's soft eyes were gazing at her, leaning over and kissing her. Yu Lily found herself going crazy with jealousy. Why could Su Qianxi spend so much time with him, while she could not even see his face? What? She sniffled and resisted the urge to cry. She clenched the mouse and smashed the video. Such a video, whether it was Su Qianxi or Louis Han, was extremely harmful. Although she was jealous of Su Qianxi, she could not deny that she really liked that innocent and kind girl. Let's just take it as paying off the debt I owed in high school. After deleting and shredding the video, Yu Lily confirmed that there was nothing left in the computer, and then she turned to leave. Tang Minjing and Tang Mingqing stared at Su Qianxi for a long time. After more than 10 minutes, Su Qianxi did not seem to be affected. Tang Mingqing stomped her foot. Weia must have changed the lipstick. I knew the packaging was wrong. Tang Minjing gritted her teeth and whispered, "Let's go back first." Back in the control room, Tang Mingqing immediately noticed that something was wrong with the computer. Startled, she looked around and found that the video was nowhere to be found. "What should we do, sister? The video is gone." Tang Minjing heard that and quickly went to check. Sure enough, it was empty. "What should we do? Should we just let her go?" "I don't want to." Tang Mingqing was anxious. Chapter 237. After Captain Li Sun's humorous speech, he successfully turned his attention to Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi was slender and graceful. Looking down with a smile, she looked elegant and noble. Her light golden dress accentuated her figure to the fullest. The dress was conservative but not stiff, formal but not deliberate. She looked energetic in it. Polite words were just polite words after all. What could a little girl say? She must have prepared a draft and just recited it when the time came. There were more than one or two people who thought so. Almost everyone did not have any hope. However, as soon as Su Qianxi spoke, she attracted the attention of the people around her. The reporters broadcasted the scene on Weibo. Su Qianxi's speech, posture, smile and temperament were all praised by netizens. Old Master Li Sun clearly sensed that the crowd's initial disdain had turned into focus and admiration. He was very proud of himself. She was his granddaughter-in-law. He chose her himself. After Su Qianxi said that, the surrounding light suddenly dimmed, and the big screen on the stage where Su Qianxi was standing suddenly lit up. Melodious piano music appeared, mellow and sad. Su Qianxi was dazed. This music was elegy. Looking back, she saw a photo on the big screen. In the photo, an elegant white grand piano was placed under layers of wisteria. Golden sunlight shone through the gaps of the wisteria, embellishing the piano with gold. A girl in white was sitting in front of the piano, playing with her eyes down. Her face was a bit wet. And just behind the girl, a tall and straight figure stood behind, looking at the girl with soft eyes. Seeing such a scene, many people were slightly surprised. Especially Ming sitting below, shaking the wine glass in his hand. He couldn't help but complain, "Damn, that guy Li Xiqing really likes his wife. What about the divorce? What about the contract?" Ming touched his nose and turned to look at Yu Lily. Yu Lily looked at Su Qianxi's slender figure with envy in her eyes. Su Qianxi's life was really good. The melodious piano music continued, but the picture had changed. High in the sky, Li Xiqing kissed her with tenderness in his eyes. Su Qianxi's eyes were wide open. Obviously she had been kissed secretly. On the beach, Su Qianxi's face was held, her lips sucked and her cheeks were red. At the underwater restaurant, she put her hand on his shoulder and looked up at him. Her eyes were filled with happiness. One by one the pictures flashed past, causing the surrounding reporters to exclaim that they were showing off their love. Seeing that, Tang Minjing's nails almost dug into her arms. Damn it. Tang Mingqing could not stand it anymore. Why does Li Xiqing like her so much? I don't like it. Tang Minjing snorted. He can't like her. If he liked Su Qianxi he would never touch me. The baby in my belly is the best evidence. Tang Mingqing was a bit unsure. Looking at the images, Li Xiqing's expression looked so real and vivid. Could it be that it was all an act? He only wanted to do it for the old man to see. The old man forced him so much. Tang Mingqing was relieved. What should we do now? Chapter 238. What the? Mr. Li is so handsome. Su Qianxi is so lucky to have such a man. Su Qianxi is so lucky to have such a man. Su Qianxi's classmates all exclaimed, full of envy and jealousy. On the big screen the image changed again and a face appeared. Li Xiqing so handsome. Li Xiqing appeared on the big screen with the same cold face. There was no expression on his face, but his slightly soft eyes showed that he was in a good mood. Hello everyone. Thank you for coming to my wife's press conference. I am Li Xiqing. His voice was deep and mellow. It was an extremely pleasant and moving voice. Seeing his face, Su Qianxi's heart raced. Wow, really handsome. And really handsome. Su Qianxi blushed looking at the screen behind her. She knew that this was recorded by Li Xiqing in advance. Looking at the background, it should have been recorded in the United States. When the time comes we will have a grand wedding. I hope you can come again. Thank you. Li Xiqing had always been a person who knew how to say nice things. This kind of thing was said by him like a news anchor. Su Qianxi couldn't help laughing. Looking up at his face she felt sweet inside. What should she do? She felt so happy that she could die. She thought that after Li Xiqing said that, it would be the end. Unexpectedly, the expression on his face became softer, just like when he was facing her. He said, finally, thank you to my wife waiting for me to come back. Wife, well, it felt good. I will wait for you. Su Qianxi responded in a low voice, not noticing that there was a microphone in front of her. Her voice was clearly heard in the room. On the screen, Li Xiqing paused and finally said, love you. The room was in an uproar. How could Li Xiqing say such sarcastic words? Hearing this, the people around them wanted to scratch the wall and kill themselves. Dog abuse to dog abuse. God, the world is crazy. Oh Ming almost ate his wine glass. Did he see a ghost? When I saw it, I had the same reaction. Opposite Oh Ming sat a young man. Because of the occasion he was wearing a suit and leather shoes, which was rare. A pair of peach blossom eyes stared at the computer placed in front of him. His fingers gently moved as he let out a long sigh. This brat left a mess for me to clean up. He's too much. Tisk tsk tisk. Oh Ming didn't give him a good look. I heard that you extorted a lot of money from Lao Air. You're just doing something and you're complaining. If I were Lao Air I would kill you. Luo Zhan chuckled. If you don't point it out, you're still a good brother. As he spoke, he pressed the enter key on the keyboard and nodded in satisfaction. Done, my mission is complete. Another 10 million. Yu Lily spat out a mouthful of wine. 10 million? Damn, she really didn't understand the world of the rich. So what if he couldn't be there? He could just arrange for an assistant to help him play the video. Did they have to invite such an expensive person just to play a video? A sky-high price for a video. Yu Lily couldn't understand. Just when all kinds of dogs were being abused, a beautiful female voice came from all directions to everyone's ears. Originally on this day I should not reveal the truth. Hearing that, everyone looked for the source of the voice and finally found a slender figure at the end of the crowd. Holding the microphone, Tang Minjing walked up under everyone's gaze. Many people recognized her. Back then, Tang Minjing used to be Li Xiqing's secretary. But later, no one knew when she left Li's group. At this moment, Tang Minjing looked righteous. Looking at Su Qianxi, she said word by word, but I can't help it. Mr. Li is the person I admire and like the most. I can't stand him being deceived by such a woman. Today, I will reveal the true face of this woman. The crowd was in an uproar. The true face. Chapter 239. The big screen that was fixed on Li Xiqing's handsome face suddenly flickered and gradually dimmed. This kind of light, in the venue where the lights had not yet been restored, created a kind of mysterious atmosphere. Everyone looked over. Suddenly, a scream rang out from the speakers in all directions. The scream caught everyone off guard. Everyone was startled, but Tang Minjing looked more and more smug. Seeing Su Qianxi looking at her in shock, Tang Minjing pointed at the ground and mouthed to her, "Go to hell." Su Qianxi looked at Tang Minjing's confident look and felt sympathetic. Finally, looking at Tang Minjing's smug look, she slowly smiled. In her smile there was sarcasm, sympathy, and boundless hatred. Coldness instantly filled her eyes. Coldness, as if from the boundless hell, was transmitted from Su Qianxi's eyes to Tang Minjing's heart. Tang Minjing was startled. Seeing Su Qianxi's extremely cold smile, the smile on her face disappeared. Still so arrogant at the brink of death. When the video gets to the point, I'll see how you deal with it. Feeling resentful, Tang Minjing looked away from Su Qianxi's face and fell on the big screen. On the big screen, several men pushed a woman to the corner. The leading man directly lunged at her, and the other men around him were also tempted. Such a shocking scene made everyone's eyes widen. That woman is Mrs. Li? I did not expect Mrs. Li to be so open. No, that does not seem to be Mrs. Li. The woman's face was gradually shown in close-up. Her facial features were exquisite, and she looked flirtatious and elegant, which was obviously different from Su Qianxi's charming appearance. This face was clearly, "Isn't that Secretary Tang?" Someone exclaimed. Everyone's eyes fell on Tang Minjing. Tang Minjing felt like she was struck by lightning and suddenly froze. Looking at the video that she had asked someone to edit, she had personally directed every detail and process. If one did not watch it carefully, they would never be able to tell that the video was edited. She was sure that with this video, Su Qianxi would not be able to explain herself even if she had 10 mouths. However, when she was the protagonist of the video that had boosted her confidence, she was dumbfounded. How is this possible? How could this be? Wasn't that supposed to be Su Qianxi's face? However, every detail on the video was so vivid, as if it was really her NPC that had been secretly filmed. Su Qianxi looked at Tang Minjing from afar and said coldly into the microphone, "Didn't you say that you were going to reveal my true colors? Could it be that this is my true face?" Tang Minjing's face was pale. Looking at the big screen, she felt a chill running down her spine. "It's not me, it's not me." Tang Minjing felt cold all over. "Su Qianxi, it was Su Qianxi who wanted to hurt me." "Why did you hurt me?" Before he could finish his sentence, the scene changed. Chapter 240. Tang Minjing's voice was hesitant. "But, no buts. Be smart. Su Qianxi, that be *tc. So what if the old man likes her? I am still Qin Shua's favorite. When the old man is dead, we will have a lot of fun." When the old man was dead. This old man was referring to old master Li Sun. Standing on the stage, Captain Li looked at Tang Minjing with disgust and disdain in his cloudy eyes. Tang Minjing seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. Li Sun had always known that this girl was not a kind person, but he did not expect that she was so vicious that she always wanted him dead. Just because Qin Shuhua liked her, she wanted to marry into the Li family? Not to mention that Li Sun was still alive. Even if he was dead, he would not let the Tang family take the position of the second wife of the Li family. Condemnation, disgust, disdain, disappointment, and disbelief were all focused in one direction. Tang Minjing clearly felt the eyes of the people around her, and she stepped back and back. Her beautiful face was deathly pale. Her body trembled slightly as she murmured, "It's not me, it's not me. Why did you frame me?" No one sympathized with her. On the screen was still a photo of Tang Minjing and Tang Minjing. In the speakers, their voices continued, "So what? If I can't get her this time, I will wait for the next time. Didn't the old man hold a press conference for her? Let's do it. At that time, I will give them a big gift. I still have a trump card. Su Qianxi, what does she have to compete with me?" "What gift?" Tang Minjing asked curiously. "You will know." Suddenly the phone rang. Tang Minjing said, "I have to take a call. You go out first. You are so cautious even about your own sister." Yu Lily's voice was particularly loud in the quiet hall. However, this sound was like a small stone thrown into the lake. It immediately startled the originally quiet fish at the bottom of the lake, and the surrounding people began to whisper. "This Tang Minjing is so scary. Isn't it said that the eldest daughter of the Tang family is well-educated, gentle, and kind-hearted? Kind-hearted as hell. How did Mrs. Li offend Tang? Not only did she kill her child, but she also wants to humiliate her on such an occasion. If she succeeds, Mrs. Li will be too ashamed to see others in the future. The whispers grew louder and louder. Tang Menjing's face became paler and paler, and her legs became weaker and weaker. It can't be like this, it can't be like this. She had clearly arranged everything. She had clearly deployed everything long ago. Things should develop according to her plan, right? Why was it like this? Why? Tang Menjing was puzzled and looked at Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi's eyes fell on a corner. In that corner, O Ming and Luo Zhan were sitting together. Luo Zhan? Yes, Luo Zhan. Tang Menjing was suddenly enlightened, feeling hopeless. Luo Zhan was one of Li Xiqing's few friends and one of the top hackers in the industry. Only Li Xiqing could have the face and money to hire him. In other words, what happened today was actually arranged by Li Xiqing. Chapter 241. The plane from New York to Kingstown Airport landed at 20:48 a.m. Beijing time. Yu Lili finally understood why Li Xiqing gave Luo Zhan the 10 million yuan. 10 million. However, since Tang Menjing could reap what she had sown, the 10 million was well worth it. She was secretly shocked by Li Xiqing's means and envious of Su Qianxi. She had such a man who loved her and a male best friend who protected her so much. Su Qianxi's fate was much better than hers. And she, looking at O Ming, Yu Lili felt unspeakable bitterness in her heart. Between people there could really be such a big gap, such a big gap. O Ming was talking to Luo Zhan. He seemed to feel Yu Lili's gaze and looked over. Seeing her obviously unhappy face, he slightly approached and asked, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Yu Lili pursed her lips and decided to ignore him. O Ming raised his eyebrows, feeling a little inexplicable. He cheekily approached her and kissed her on the cheek. "Not happy?" Yu Lili looked disgusted and wiped her lips with her hand. "Is it dirty?" "It's not like I haven't tried dirtier things." O Ming curled his lips. "Let's try it later?" "Go away." Yu Lili felt disgusted. This man was so disgusting. Obscene. Shameless. O Ming narrowed his eyes. Without saying a word, he put his arm around her waist and forced her to sit next to him. They put the two chairs next to each other, and the two of them leaned against each other intimately. Yu Lili wanted to escape, but O Ming quickly held her down and whispered, "If you run away once, I will do it 10 times tonight. You try?" His voice was evil, with a warning that could not be ignored. She knew that he was absolutely not joking. Yu Lili suddenly became quiet. Suddenly thinking of something, she asked, "What if I don't run away?" "Then do it once." But for how long he did not know. Yu Lili did not know what he was thinking and was held by him obediently. O Ming was very satisfied and considerately helped her with the dishes. "Let's eat." "Oh." Tang Menjing couldn't stand it anymore and sat on the ground. The floor was covered with a thick carpet. It wouldn't hurt if he fell on his butt, but it was extremely embarrassing. Tang Menjing wanted to stand up, but her legs were weak. "Oh, my daughter." A crying voice came from afar. A slightly fat middle-aged woman ran over, crying. Seeing Tang Menjing sitting on the ground, she shouted, "My daughter, why are you sitting on the ground? You are hurting the baby in your belly." This sound was more like a bomb that startled the entire place, causing an uproar in the crowd. The child in her belly? Tang Menjing was pregnant? Mrs. Tang ran over and helped Tang Menjing up. She grabbed the microphone that Tang Menjing had dropped on the ground and shouted, "Qin Shuhua, come out. Let's have a talk." Qin Shuhua was the name of Li Xiqing's mother. "Your second son got my daughter pregnant. Don't you have to take responsibility?" Mrs. Tang's voice was so loud that it was deafening. Qin Shuhua was chatting with a group of relatives and friends in the inner room, not noticing the chaos outside. Hearing the noise, she ran out and saw Tang Menjing in a daze. Feeling heartbroken, she hurried over and asked, "What happened?" Chapter 242. Mrs. Tang's voice was very loud. She did not know what it meant to be low-key. In front of everyone, he boldly claimed that his own daughter was the mother of the eldest grandson of the Li clan. What a scandal. Since ancient times, the first requirement to become the eldest son of the eldest grandson was the status. And now, even if the child in Tang Menjing's belly was really Li Xiqing's, it could only be regarded as an illegitimate child. The status was not legitimate. Where did the eldest grandson come from? Everyone was amazed by Mrs. Tang's cheekiness. Looking at each other, they did not forget to look at Su Qianxi. Compared with Tang Menjing's embarrassment and Mrs. Tang's arrogance, Su Qianxi looked natural and graceful. Standing on the stage, her temperament was extraordinary. Although her expression was cold, she had an inexplicable charm. No wonder Captain Li chose Mrs. Li instead of Miss Tang. Someone in the crowd said this, and those who wanted to please the Li family immediately echoed, their voices getting louder and louder. Tang Minjing suddenly looked up, grabbed Qin Shuhua with both hands and cried, "Auntie, auntie?" Then she burst into tears. "I know you love me the most. I know I have embarrassed you, but the child is innocent. The child in my belly is really Brother Xiqing's. You watched me grow up. Please believe me." Qin Shuhua had always liked this girl. Not only because Tang Minjing was smart and capable, but also because she had always been gentle and considerate in front of Qin Shuhua. Having watched her grow up, Qin Shuhua thought she knew her very well. Such a child would not lie to her. Hearing Tang Minjing's words, Qin Shuhua felt pity and held her. Before she said anything, she heard an authoritative voice, "Shuhua, come here." The voice was old and deep, authoritative without being angry. Qin Shuhua looked at Captain Li and then at Tang Minjing, feeling a bit embarrassed. Tang Minjing grabbed her arm and knelt on the ground. "The child is more than 3 months old. It is a boy." "Auntie?" Hearing that, Su Qinsi felt a bit suffocated. More than 3 months. It was also more than 3 months since the last time they went to Australia on a business trip. That meant she was pregnant at that time? Looking at Tang Minjing's expression, it did not seem to be fake. And that phone call, his heart was gripped tightly. She stood there, looking in that direction, and gradually clenched her fists. Captain Li clearly noticed Su Qinsi's emotional change. He reached out and put his hand on her shoulder. That boy won't. No one knew Li Xiqing better than him. The boy's character was too similar to his. He would never do such a thing. Captain Li was very sure. Su Qinsi nodded and felt reassured. Yes, he was not that kind of person. "Minjing, please get up first. Let's talk when Xiqing comes back, okay?" Qin Shuhua felt sorry for Tang Minjing since they were both friends. If she had been more insistent, Li Xiqing would not have married her. Tang Minjing cried even louder and said, "If you don't believe me, I won't get up. The baby in my belly is really Brother Xiqing's." "It's true, is that so?" A cold voice passed through the crowd and came from afar. Everyone turned to the source of the voice and saw a tall, travel-worn figure standing at the entrance of the venue. Chapter 243. The man was tall and straight, tall and handsome. Just by standing there he had an irresistible charm. He stepped into the hall, expressionless and dressed formally. He seemed to be surrounded by a cold aura. However, when Su Qinsi saw that figure, there seemed to be something in her heart that was quickly fermenting and out of control. The bitterness and sweetness suddenly converged in her heart and turned into a strong sense of joy, directing her to run in that direction. Seeing her, Li Xiqing's cold eyes softened a bit and he opened his arms to her. Su Qinsi directly ran into his arms and hugged him tightly. The warm embrace made the coldness in Li Xiqing's eyes dissipate a bit. Su Qinsi hugged him and said happily, "You're back." "Yes, I'm back." His voice was deep and mellow, like the sound of a top-notch cello being played slowly. Su Qinsi hugged him and looked up at his face. Li Xiqing seemed to be very tired recently. His originally clean eyes were blue. In just a few days in the United States, his face seemed to be sharper and colder. He had lost a lot of weight. Su Qinsi felt sorry for him and stroked his face. "Are you very tired?" Li Xiqing held her hand and kissed it gently. "I don't feel tired when I see you." Oh, Captain Li exclaimed with a serious face. "Young man, be careful." As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding people couldn't help but chuckle. "Tisk tsk. It hurts my eyes." Luo Zhan looked resentful. "Brother, it's inhumane to show off to a dog. Do you know that?" What a show of affection. O Ming was secretly jealous and looked at Yu Lily. "Let's do it too." Yu Lily slapped him away. "Get out." Mrs. Tang was furious. With her hands on her hips, she picked up the microphone and shouted, "Li Xiqing, you're back at the right time. Let's talk about what you mean." Li Xiqing narrowed his eyes and pulled Su Qinsi closer. Seeing Mrs. Tang's reaction, Qin Shuhua pulled her son and said, "It's time to talk. What's going on with you? Why is Tang Minjing suddenly pregnant?" Qin Shuhua's attitude was undoubtedly clear. She trusted Tang Minjing. Captain Li's face darkened. He yelled, "Shuhua, get out of the way. Let Xiqing handle this himself." "But, come back." Qin Shuhua fell silent and walked toward Captain Li. "Brother Xiqing?" Seeing that Su Qinsi and Li Xiqing were so close, Tang Minjing was extremely jealous. However, she still pretended to be pitiful and looked at Li Xiqing. "I'm sorry. I should not have kept the baby without telling you." Yes." He looked at her coldly without any warmth in his eyes. You can keep your child if you want. Tang Minjing gritted her teeth, stood up and said, "This is also your child. You are the father of the child, aren't you?" Li Xiqing suddenly smiled. His smile was like a flash in the pan, eye-catching. Regardless of whether it was the Li clan, the Tang clan, or the guests who had come to attend the meet and greet today, they were all baffled. However, although Li Xiqing was smiling, his smile was as cold as the wind. Chapter 244. Li Xiqing slowly said, "When I was 18 at my birthday party, you pretended to be drunk and climbed into my bed trying to seduce me. I asked Lu Sa to send you back. After that, I did not say a word to anyone else." It had been 8 years since she was 18. Tang Minjing's face turned pale, not knowing why he would suddenly bring up the past. "When I was 20, you pretended to sprain your ankle and asked me to send you home, but you deliberately claimed that you were my girlfriend, making my mother think that we were close. I did not clarify it and kept my distance from you. Last year, I went on a business trip to Australia. At a party, you deliberately asked your male classmate to provoke me, wanting me to fight with him for you. After that failed, you sent someone to block my car just to get me to give you an explanation. This year, on my wedding night, you drugged me and tried to seduce me into your room. After you failed, you framed my wife, trying to make me hate her and distance myself from her. After that, you deliberately came to my door to remind me. I just didn't want to pursue the matter." The more Tang Minjing listened, the paler her face became. It turned out that he knew everything. But why? How did he know that? She had done it so discreetly. *CKme. That's too shameless. Yu Lily shouted loudly and many people chimed in. Mr. Li would never lie, and this woman did not deny it at all. What happened to being a well-bred lady? What happened to being intellectual and generous? You can't judge a book by its cover. It really does seem to be the case. Tang Minjing's body became cold and her face became pale. He looked at her coldly from the corner of his eyes and said coldly, "A few months ago, you hired someone to instruct Coach Jean to violate my wife, causing my first child to be aborted before it was even discovered." Tang Minjing almost fell, but Mrs. Tang caught her in time. As if he did not notice her emotional breakdown, he continued, 3 months ago, on a business trip to Australia, you got drunk and tried to seduce me to stay with you. You tried to drag me into your room. I was in a hurry to go back to China, so I asked Qingyu to help you sober up. However, you drove her away and went into a room with a strange man. As soon as he said that, the crowd went into an uproar. 3 months ago, and Tang Minjing's baby was 3 months old, which meant nonsense. Tang Minjing was hysterical. It's you? It's you? I'll know it's you even if you turn into ashes. Don't try to lie to me. Li Xiqing curled his lips. I was already on the plane back home. How could I have a child with you? No, no. Tang Minjing looked like she was in pain, but her tone was firm. It is you. Except for you, I will not be with any other man. Tang Minjing sobbed and begged, Brother Xiqing, please let them go first. We can talk in private, okay? Too many things were involved in this matter. Tang Minjing was scared. Tang Jinghao couldn't afford to lose face. There were so many reporters around and the gossip must have spread. She had to stop the situation before it was over. However, Li Xiqing did not cooperate with her. Chapter 245. Tang Minjing could not hold it anymore and burst into tears. Nothing was more painful than being rejected by the one you loved. There was nothing more terrifying than having one's dignity crushed in front of everyone. She was still pregnant with his child. She was pregnant with his child. Tang Minjing cried, which made many soft-hearted women sympathize with her. However, there must be something hateful about a poor person, someone in the crowd said. Tang Minjing cried even louder, Brother Xiqing, it doesn't matter if you don't want to admit it. The baby in my belly is the flesh and blood of the Li family. He is your son. No matter how much you hate me and don't want to talk to me, this is an undeniable fact. This is Li Xiqing's first child, his first son. Your eldest son. Su Qinxi held Li Xiqing's hand tightly, feeling a bit uneasy. She looked up at him. Was what Tang Minjing said true? Li Xiqing noticed her little movement, held her hand tightly and whispered, Do you believe me? His voice was very low. Only the two of them could hear it. Su Qinxi looked at his cold and calm face, feeling a bit absent-minded. In her mind, the ambiguous voice on the phone kept echoing, with Tang Minjing's obsession with Li Xiqing, it was impossible for her to fool around outside. Su Qinxi firmly believed that. However, Li Xiqing said it was not true. Who was telling the truth? Do you believe me? Do you? Don't you? Li Xiqing's eyes dimmed. Su Qianxi was silent for a few seconds and nodded. I believe you. She had to believe him. As long as she believed it, he was not, wasn't he? Su Qianxi held his hand tightly, looked up at Tang Menjing and said loudly, "Then, let's do a DNA test." Yes or no, they would know after a test. Nothing is more convincing than the truth, isn't it? Luo Zhan heard that and clapped his hands. Blood test. We will know after a test. If our second son liked you, how could he have married our sister-in-law? The truth always hurt. There was resentment in Tang Menjing's eyes. Seeing Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing holding hands, she couldn't help feeling jealous. Originally, this should have belonged to her. She should be the one who was publicly despised and humiliated. Oh, my daughter. Mrs. Tang cried out, why did I end up with such a bad man? He looks like a decent man, but in fact he abandoned me. He's so shameless. You can't talk nonsense like that. Ming finally spoke. His tall figure came into view, and the corners of his eyes were slightly raised. No one knows better than me what kind of person Li Xiqing is. Are you afraid to let your daughter do a DNA test? Su Qianxi asked. Yeah, you don't dare anymore, right? Tsk. She's asking for it. She just got pregnant and blamed it on Li Xiqing. It's terrible. Li Xiqing is so miserable. Well, I knew Miss Tang loves Mr. Li. Tang Menjing covered her belly and cried even harder. Li Xiqing, you don't want your child, but I do. What do you mean? You don't dare to do a test? You're afraid of being exposed. With tears in her eyes, Tang Menjing stared at Su Qianxi and yelled, the child has not been born yet. How can we do a test? Chapter 246. Su Qianxi's voice was surprisingly calm, and her expression was indifferent. Her posture and dark eyes were full of hatred and indifference. Looking at Su Qianxi, Tang Menjing had a strange feeling. Was this really Su Qianxi? She had changed so much. In the past, although Su Qianxi was unruly and ill-mannered, she was very timid. Standing in front of so many people, it was difficult for her to even stand, let alone speak. Now Su Qianxi did not have any stage fright at all. Her temperament and expression were more than different from before. It was like she was a different person. It was like another Li Xiqing. Tang Menjing was a bit shocked. Looking away, she blurted out, no. You Lily sneered, you don't dare, do you? Luo Zhan shook his head. Miss Tang, I did not expect you to be this kind of person. Just because you are pregnant, you blame it on Li Xiqing. That's so mean. You will be sentenced for slander. Tang Menjing gritted her teeth, looked around and said, the fetus is only 3 months old. Amniocentesis? You are forcing me to abort him. Her voice was almost roaring, and then it turned into a wail. Li Xiqing, no matter whether you admit this child or not, I will have this child. This is the child of the Li family, the flesh and blood of the Li family. You can never change that. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone around him fell silent. Amniocentesis had a certain degree of risk. Generally, 4 to 8 months was the best choice. Almost no mother was willing to do this unless it was necessary. However, in this case, could she not do it? Qingyu, Li Xiqing said coldly. Qingyu shivered and quickly walked up. I'm here. Contact a psychiatrist to take a good look at Miss Tang. As soon as the indifferent voice fell, there was even more silence. Qingyu immediately picked up her phone and began to look for her contact list. The surroundings were silent. Suddenly, someone said, are you really contacting him? Li Xiqing squinted at that person and said coldly, Li Xiqing, never joke. Li Xiqing, you bastard. Mrs. Tang screamed. You are the psycho. You are the psycho. Abandonment at the beginning, pulling out the Diao heartless Ba. Do you really think that the Li family is a big family? Do you really need the Tang family to climb up the social ladder like this? Shameless, shameless. Mrs. Tang's angry voice was the loudest in the room. You have the guts to sleep with me, but you don't have the guts to admit it. B** stars. A house full of B** stars. Su Qianxi is cheap and you are also cheap. Bitch couple. Shut up. Li Xiqing's aura suddenly plummeted. Being yelled at like this, Mrs. Tang, who had been like a wild horse, suddenly stopped. She stuttered, What? Am I wrong? You are a jerk. Tsk, a rich wife? So uncultured. Yeah, you don't dare to do a DNA test because you have a guilty conscience. I've worked with Mr. Li for so many years. We all know what kind of person he is. Yes. Humph. Tang Menjing sneered with red eyes. I will not use my child's life for your experiment. He is his child. That is for sure. Or we can try another way, Ming suggested. What way? A lie detector. He looked at Tang Menjing. Do you dare? Chapter 247. Yes, why wouldn't I? Mrs. Tang immediately shouted, My Tang Menjing has only had one man. She's not like that bitch. She's always been with other men. It's a good thing she lost the baby. Otherwise the baby wouldn't even know who the father is. Hearing that, Su Chenxi was furious. When she was about to retort, she heard someone yell behind her, Watch your mouth. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw Song Yifan walking out with a gloomy face. With such manners, no wonder you have such a shameless daughter. Hearing Song Yifan's words, Mrs. Tang was also enraged. She yelled, Who do you think you are? My daughter is at least polite. She is a bastard whose parents do not even know where she is. Song Yifan was so angry that he almost hit Mrs. Tang. Instinctively he retorted, Who said that? I am her father. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of breathing could be heard from the surroundings. Su Chenxi was also dazed looking at Song Yifan. After Song Yifan said that, he suddenly felt that it was inappropriate. However, looking at Su Chenxi's shocked eyes, he felt a bit happy and said, I, Song Yifan, am Su Chenxi's father. No matter if she recognizes me or not, she is my daughter. Damn, that's crazy. Luo Zhan was the first to yell. Even the business tycoons who were used to seeing a storm felt it was a bit unbelievable. With Song Yifan's current fame and reputation, it was obviously unwise for him to suddenly have an affair with an illegitimate daughter. At the very least, his reputation would be shaken, and at the very worst, his reputation would be ruined. Everything he had worked so hard for over the years could be ruined because of this. Crazy, this was crazy. No wonder Song Yifan would lead his band to this performance. It turned out that there was another reason behind it. Song Yifan did not seem to notice the shock he had caused. With a warning tone, he stared at Mrs. Tang and said, Whoever dares to bully my daughter will have to go through me first. Mrs. Tang was startled by his attitude and was speechless for a moment. The surrounding reporters immediately buzzed like flies, fighting to be the first to spread this explosive news. Within a few minutes, a resounding new title appeared on Weibo, a shocking reversal. The famous pianist Song Yifan is the father-in-law of the Li family? Li Xiqing, I only have one question for you. What is your relationship with Tang Menjing? Song Yifan sounded very tough. Does her child have anything to do with you? More than 100 eyes fell on them. Li Xiqing looked calm and said firmly, It's okay. It was the expected answer. She held his hand, but he gently pulled her into his arms. Leaning against his chest, she clearly felt his chest vibrate. His deep and mellow voice came slowly. I, Li Xiqing, have only had one woman. Bah! Mrs. Tang was furious. She rushed up and slapped Mrs. Tang. Li Xiqing's eyes darkened, and he moved sideways to protect her. But she was slapped in the back. The dull sound seemed to have hit her heart, making her tremble. Mrs. Tang missed and was furious. She tried to slap Su Chenxi again. However, Li Xiqing caught her hand and gave her a cold look. Pa. Chapter 248. How dare you hit me? Mrs. Tang screamed in shock and subconsciously wanted to hit back. However, before she could do anything, Li Xiqing pushed her hand away. Mrs. Tang stumbled back a few steps and almost fell. Standing still, she looked at Li Xiqing and Su Chenxi in disbelief. Mrs. Tang was exasperated. I am your elder, and this is how you treat your elders. With a slap and a shove, Mrs. Tang suddenly felt humiliated. How could these two youngsters treat her like this? Elder? Su Chenxi looked contemptuous. An elder that the youngsters admire is called an elder. You are an old hooligan. Great. A sudden cheer came from the crowd. Old Master Li's eyes were also filled with satisfaction. He praised, Well said. With Captain Li taking the lead, more and more people followed suit. Mrs. Tang's face turned pale as she gritted her teeth. Don't go too far. A voice came. Looking back, Tang Menjing was furious, but she suddenly frowned. His face turned pale without warning and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. As he spoke, he was already half bent over. Mom, my stomach hurts. When Tang Menjing was sent to the hospital, no one from the Li family went there. Mrs. Tang was swearing in the hospital. When Tang Jinghao arrived, he heard his wife swearing. He was so angry that he slapped her hard in the face. Shame on you? Who asked you to go to that kind of place? How stupid. Tang Jinghao was furious. I really regret letting you marry into the Tang family. You three are a disgrace to the Tang family. Being slapped, Mrs. Tang was dazed at first and then cried hysterically. Your daughter and wife were bullied and you did not let us bully them. Why did you come back to hit your wife? Tang Jinghao, you bastard. Shut up. Tang Jinghao's face was dark. Idiot. Who asked you to go to that kind of place? Do you still remember what you wrote about us on Weibo? Both daughters of the Tang family got pregnant before marriage because of heredity. What is written here? Look at it yourself. Mrs. Tang was so scared that she didn't even dare to cry. She put a hand over her mouth and stopped crying. Because of this, the company's stock price has plummeted. In less than 3 hours, the loss is more than the previous failed investment I invested in. It's all because of you. Then what should we do now? Tell me, is Menjing really pregnant with Li Xiqing's child? Absolutely. Hearing the affirmative answer, Tang Jinghao's expression softened. That's easy. The most important thing now is to protect this child. Then there was a fierce look in his eyes. Li Xiqing wants to destroy my company, but he is still too young. Mrs. Tang was startled. You mean Li Xiqing did this? Tang Jinghao was a little exasperated. He gritted his teeth and said, that boy has always been competing with us, but he has no reason to deal with us. Now our backyard is on fire, and he has delivered himself to us. Mrs. Tang felt even more guilty and didn't dare to speak. Chapter 249. The meet and greet session ended quickly. Captain Li, Qin Shuhua and other relatives went back together, and the other guests had left. Ming Yu, Lily, Luo Zhan, and Qing Yu stayed and found a clean room to sit down with the couple. Qing Yu, help Luo Zhan find the hotel where we stayed that day and get the surveillance records of that time. Yes. Luo Zhan, help me get the boarding information for that day. Okay. Ming. Lie detector, right? Leave it to me. No. Li Xiqing looked at Su Qianxi and said, I want you to help me prove my innocence. My wife doesn't seem to trust me, does she? Su Qianxi heard this and felt a bit guilty. She didn't trust her? She wanted to, but Tang Menjing really didn't look like she was lying. Hey, Ming exclaimed. Since when did you care about other people's opinions? When people said you were gay and impotent, you didn't want to prove your innocence. Luo Zhan also felt surprised. Luo Zhan was also amazed. That's right, sister-in-law. There used to be a lot of girls who confessed to him, but he always put on a cold face and scared away a lot of girls. Also, he hugged me again and became my rumored boyfriend from then on. F***ck, this handsome guy is so straight that he can't be any more straight. From then on, he had to face all kinds of gay looks from all kinds of girls. Do you know how painful that feeling is? Luo Zhan looked sad and angry. His words and actions were extremely similar to Lu Yihan's. Su Qianxi chuckled, and at the same time she thought of Lu Yihan. He was injured to save her, and she didn't know how he was doing in the hospital alone. Ming also tried to smooth things over. He raised his eyebrows and said, he didn't have a girlfriend when he was in school. After he started his business, he was like a monk, either chanting scriptures or eating vegetarian food every day. When I heard that he listened to the old man and married you, I thought I didn't expect him to kill someone. Although the child was not saved, at least it proves that he is not gay or impotent, right? As he said that, he raised his eyebrows at Li Xiqing as if to say, how about it? I'm a good friend, right? Su Qianxi smiled and nodded. Yes. He finally breathed a sigh of relief and took her hand. Let's go home. Hey, throw it away after using it? At least treat us to a meal. Luo Zhan shouted. However, Li Xiqing simply ignored it. Luo Zhan looked at Ming indignantly and said, F***ck, you only care about the opposite sex. Ming also took Lily's hand and smiled wickedly. Let's go home and sleep. Luo Zhan, boo-hoo. There's no justice in this world. Inhumane. You're abusing me just because of a disagreement. I want to protest. Back home, Su Qianxi gradually blushed. Today she didn't do it and no one bothered her. Could it be, ugh, so embarrassing? Li Xiqing sensed that something was wrong with her. He leaned closer and whispered, what are you thinking about? No. She stuttered. Seeing the teasing smile on his face, she blushed all the way down to her neck. That's right, Li Xiqing said. She angrily pulled him into the bathroom. Take a shower first. Li Xiqing did not go in. He turned her over and pressed her against the door. His low voice had a hint of a smile. After the shower, what about after? After. Su Qianxi blushed even more and pushed him in. Shower first. Li Xiqing chuckled and said, yes, ma'am. Chapter 250. In the bathroom, the sound of running water came and Su Qianxi couldn't help feeling nervous. Deep breath, exhale, inhale. When Li Xiqing came out, he was only wrapped in a bath towel. This was his habit. He never wiped the water off his body. His slightly curly black hair was still dripping water, and his wheat-colored skin glowed seductively under the warm yellow light of the bedroom. Wow, so handsome. Su Qianxi blushed, holding the bathrobe and rubbing against him. His entire body, inside and out, had been washed clean. She had never taken a shower so seriously. After she was done, she even put some body lotion on. However, thinking that Li Xiqing was very likely to bite her, she wiped the body lotion off. Thinking of the previous failures, Su Qianxi couldn't help feeling nervous. Taking another deep breath in the mirror, she finally walked out of the bathroom with a nervous and perturbed mood. When she came out, the light had been adjusted to a romantic dusk color. The white quilt on the bed was arched up. Was Li Xiqing? Phew. Don't be nervous. Su Qianxi stepped forward, carefully lifted the quilt and lay down. However, she found that the man had fallen asleep. Oh. Su Qianxi suddenly felt that she had prepared for nothing. In this situation he actually fell asleep? She reached out and put her arms around his waist. Li Xiqing had put on a silk nightgown. It was thin and stuck to his body, outlining his well-defined muscles. At this moment, his eyes were closed and his breathing was even. He was sleeping very, very deeply. Thinking of how he had just rushed back with dark circles under his eyes and sunken cheeks, Su Qianxi thought. He was probably exhausted. Su Qianxi stared at his sleeping face, slowly looking down from his eyebrows. His dark eyebrows, closed eyes and 2 rows of thick black eyelashes. So beautiful. Su Qianxi watched and did not know when she fell asleep. Perhaps because Li Xiqing's arms were warmer, Su Qianxi couldn't help burrowing into his arms. In the middle of the night, Li Xiqing was woken up by her. Seeing that she was sleeping like a child, he smiled, adjusted her sleeping position, closed his eyes and fell asleep with her. The effect of the press conference was very significant. Almost the entire Kingstown and even the entire country knew who Su Qianxi was. However, Su Qianxi's name had not only spread out, but there were also all kinds of rumors. For example, the relationship between Tang Menjing and Li Xiqing. Another example was the relationship between the Tang and Li families. Another example was the relationship between Su Qianxi and Song Yifan. Rong Anna never liked to read the newspaper at breakfast. However, when she saw the photo and the title of the headline, she couldn't help but be attracted. He reached for it and read the title aloud, Explosive. International Song is the father-in-law of the Li family. The attached photo was a photo of Song Yifan and Su Qianxi at the party. The two were standing a bit apart, and Song Yifan looked at Su Qianxi with obvious tenderness. Footsteps came from upstairs. Rong Anna took a bite of the sandwich and looked at the figure coming this way. Her long hair was combed into an elegant and gentle woman's bun. She wore a close-fitting long chong sam embroidered with crimson-purple flowers that made her already noble and aloof woman look even more beautiful and breathtaking. Chapter 251. There was no class the next morning, so she did not set the alarm clock. When she woke up, it was already past 9 a.m. Opening her eyes, she saw Li Xiqing's handsome face in deep sleep. His skin was smooth and delicate, and she could barely see any pores. His arm was still on her body and his waist was a bit sore. She carefully turned sideways, reached out and gently held his arm, lifted it up and moved it away. However, when she was about to put his hand down, his hand suddenly went down and wrapped around her waist. Li Xiqing held her tightly in his arms. Before she had time to be surprised, her red lips were sealed. Being kissed, Su Qianxi suddenly woke up. Awake. His voice was a bit hoarse, with a hint of drowsiness. Completely awake. Li Xiqing saw her dazed look and brushed her long hair away from her face. I was too tired last night and now. His big hand slid down from the side of her face and easily lifted her silk nightgown. Su Qianxi was well prepared last night and did not wear any underwear. She suddenly shivered, and her sensitive body subconsciously curled up. Don't be afraid. Li Xiqing turned over and gently kissed her lips. I'll be gentle. Su Qianxi blushed again. Looking at him, she inexplicably thought of a saying. A man's desire is the strongest in the morning. His rough big hand covered her face and slowly slid down, rubbing her neck and collarbone. Su Qianxi shivered sensitively and could not help looking up. However, she inadvertently caught a glimpse of his burning eyes. His innate cold eyes were tinged with an obvious fire, like the eyes of a hunting wolf that had seen a little white rabbit, with a hint of mockery and desire. Under his gaze, Su Qianxi wanted to turn into an ostrich and bury herself in the quilt. Shrinking her neck, she blushed and looked away. "Don't look at me." Her voice was incredibly flirtatious. Su Qinxi heard her own voice and was startled. Was it really her voice? Why did it sound like she was deliberately making love to him? Li Xiqing's eyes became darker. He stopped teasing her and chuckled. Leaning down, he kissed her face and neck. The wet feeling slowly moved down and she felt uncomfortable all over. Involuntarily, she lifted her legs and climbed onto his body. Her nightgown was peeled off, and she clearly felt his big hand pass through her back. His slightly calloused palm gently rubbed the delicate skin on her back, bringing with it tiny particles. Uncomfortable, this feeling was too unbearable. Su Qinxi felt uncomfortable, but she couldn't tell exactly what was wrong. Unable to help herself, she twisted her body and looked at him with blurred eyes. She whispered, "Mr. Li." Li Xiqing paused and pressed his whole body against hers. He whispered dangerously, "What did you call me?" Su Qinxi knew she called him the wrong way, but she had called him that for so many years. How could she change it so easily? Under his gaze, she finally corrected herself. "Honey?" "Yes, what's up?" Li Xiqing curled his lips in satisfaction. Uncomfortable, Li Xiqing's big hand moved down and found that she was already deeply in love with him. Chapter 252. Su Qinxi realized it and immediately bit her lower lip, closing her mouth. However, the waves of numbness coming from her lower body caused her to be utterly defeated. Louis Han heard it and felt something was wrong. He asked, "What's wrong, Qian? Did something happen?" Su Qinxi wanted to speak, but he was moving more and more forcefully. Biting her lower lip, she arched her back and put her hands on his back, her nails deeply embedded in his flesh. "Qian?" Louis Han panicked and sat up on the bed. "Don't scare me." "Hello." Li Xiqing worked hard and whispered in her ear, "Tell him what you're doing." Su Qinxi gritted her teeth and slowly moved up and down with him. The king-sized bed gently swayed with their movements, and the man's unrestrained low breathing was clearly heard on the other side of the phone. Louis Han felt like he was going crazy. He had a bad feeling in his heart and shouted, "Qian, where are you? I'm coming for you. Talk to me." Hearing his voice, Su Qinxi knew that he was really anxious. Biting her lower lip, she wanted to speak, but the man on top of her kept accelerating, moving so fast that she almost had no time to breathe. "Qian?" Louis Han had already pulled out the needle in his hand. Without even putting on his shoes, he got out of bed and rushed out. A young nurse saw him and quickly stopped him. "Sir, you can't run around. The wound is not healed yet." Su Qinxi heard it and knew what was going on. She opened her mouth and wanted to speak, but when she let go of her lower lip, the words turned into a light moan and were clearly transmitted to the phone. Louis Han was silent. Su Qinxi gasped and said intermittently, "I'm fine." Louis Han did not speak again. Li Xiqing curled his lips in satisfaction and hung up the phone. Throwing the phone on the bedside table, he moved even harder. Finally, there was no one to disturb them. Li Xiqing put his big hand on her back and helped her sit on top of him. Wet kisses on her neck, he whispered, "Say it. I want to hear it." This position was too deep and Su Qinxi was about to burst into tears. She shouted, "It hurts. Get out, it hurts." Holding her, he said in a low voice with a hint of danger, "If it hurts, scream." Su Qinxi finally couldn't take it anymore and let out a sound that made her extremely ashamed. Li Xiqing was getting more and more aroused. He turned over and pressed her down, lifting her legs high and thrusting hard. Seeing her emotional expression, Li Xiqing subconsciously thought of Louis Han. When he was in New York, he had received a large amount of information through a phone call with a lot of care and concern. The video that Tang Menjing edited certainly meant to frame Su Qinxi. However, if she had not been so close to Louis Han, how could Tang Menjing have collected so many crimes? It was very painful. However, it only stimulated the beastly nature of the man. Su Qinxi screamed and hugged him tightly. Her mind was blank, but she heard his deep and mellow voice. "If Louis Han did this to you, would you call him that?" His voice was low and deep, filled with jealousy. Chapter 253. Opening her legs, Li Xiqing put her legs on his shoulder. Seeing that, he felt sorry for her and blamed himself. At the same time, there was an uncontrollable fire burning in him. "Calm down, Li Xiqing." Taking a deep breath, Li Xiqing picked up a bit of ointment and gently applied it. The cold feeling made the pain go away. She still covered her face with the pillow and did not move it away. He restrained himself. After applying the medicine, he took away her pillow and said, "Okay, put on your clothes and go down to dinner." Su Qianxi looked at him and said, "Okay, get dressed and go down to dinner." Getting up, he opened the closet and picked out a white sleeveless dress. It was already autumn. Thinking about it, Li Xiqing found a light yellow dress with mid-sleeves. Rummaging through his closet, he found some underwear and turned around. Su Qianxi was speechless. Why did it feel so? Seeing him holding her clothes, "Yeah, I'll do it myself. I'll help you." "No, you go out. I'll do it myself." Su Qianxi had already pulled the quilt over herself. Blushing, she reached out and took the bra from his hand. He did not care about her and lifted the quilt. As she screamed, he lifted her naked body and let her sit on him. Su Qianxi's body stiffened. Clearly feeling the heat in his body, she did not even dare to move. Li Xiqing moved closer and whispered in her ear, "I'll help you." The hot breath was on her face and she blushed even more. Even the tips of her ears were flushed. This man was so bad. Su Qianxi found that she was being controlled by him, and there was nothing she could do. But it was so enjoyable. What should she do? Li Xiqing helped her get dressed, but his movements were a bit jerky. Along the way, Su Qianxi did not dare to look at him. Finally, she zipped up and jumped off barefoot, wanting to run away. Li Xiqing could not help but laugh. Looking at her back, he reminded her, "Shoes?" Su Qianxi put on her shoes and went to the bathroom. Inadvertently, she looked up and found that she was wearing very conservative clothes. The collar was so high that it reached his neck, hiding all the crazy marks inside, not revealing a single trace. The length of the sleeves was also perfect for the current weather. Wiping her hands, Su Qianxi felt sweet. Li Xiqing had accepted her. This man belonged to her. She opened the door and walked out, still unable to suppress the smile on her face. Li Xiqing was also infected by her joy. His cold eyes were much softer than usual. When they walked down the stairs together, Nanny Rong looked at the time and exclaimed, "Oh, it's past 1 o'clock. Come and have dinner. It's still hot." Nanny Rong looked at the time and exclaimed, "Hey, it's already 1 o'clock." Su Qianxi blushed. Why did she feel that Nanny Rong had seen through everything? Under Nanny Rong's probing gaze, Su Qianxi only lowered her head to eat and did not dare to say anything. The phone in the villa rang. After Nanny Rong answered, her expression changed. She turned around and said, "Young master, sir is looking for you." Nanny Rong usually addressed Li Xiqing as sir. Only when they were in the old house she would call him sir, and sir was Li Xiqing's father. Li Xiqing put down his bowl and walked over to take the phone. "Dad. You brat, get back here right now." The voice was furious. After a pause he said, "Alone. Don't bring your wife." Su Qianxi asked, "What happened?" Chapter 254. About 10 seconds later he hung up and looked at Su Qianxi. "What's wrong?" Seeing his expression, Su Qianxi felt a bit uneasy. At this critical moment, Li Xiqing's father suddenly called. "Did something happen to Tang Menjing?" "Nothing. You eat first. I'll take you to class." "Oh." Su Qianxi looked down, but her heart felt heavy. She could not eat the delicate food in front of her. Looking up at him she asked, "What's wrong?" He shook his head. He did not know. However, his father rarely lost his temper. The number of times he would yell at him like today was definitely not more than 3 times in his life. It was definitely not a small matter. Not wanting Su Qianxi to worry, he just shook his head. After dinner, Li Xiqing walked her to the school gate and kissed her on the forehead. Su Qianxi got out of the car and watched his car drive away. She felt more and more uneasy. On the busy campus, many students saw her and immediately came up to her. "Su Qianxi, were you okay last night?" Those people were too much, especially Tang Menjing's mother. How could she be the wife of a rich family? Mr. Li is not that kind of person. We all believe. Su Qianxi could not bear it anymore. Her mind was in a mess. She forced a smile and said that she was not feeling well and went to class first. Before entering the old house of the Li family, Li Xiqing could feel the pressure that was lower than normal. Lu Sa was pacing back and forth in the living room. Seeing him, she hurriedly called, "Master, you're finally back. Mr. Li is waiting for you in the study." "What's wrong?" Li Xiqing asked. "You should go in first, Miss Tang." Lu Sa hesitated, which made Li Xiqing's heart sink. Her again. Li Xiqing had already guessed what was going on. Seeing Lu Sa's hesitation, he nodded and said, "I know. Don't worry. It's fine." Lu Sa looked a bit relaxed. "That's good. You have to take care of Miss Tang as well. I used to think she was a nice girl, but now... How could she be so shameless now? Did she really think she could get married just because she was pregnant? Second young master is not that kind of person. Before he finished, his phone rang. Was Chengyu? Boss, I got it. Send it to the old mansion. Yes. Hanging up, Li Xiqing nodded at Lu Sa and walked into the study. Before he went in, he heard the sound of crying. Tang Minjing's eyes were red and swollen. She was hugging Mrs. Tang. Seeing Li Xiqing coming in, she seemed to be scared, shrank back and said weakly, Brother Xiqing. Li Xiqing looked at Tang Minjing's belly. Today she was wearing a tight black dress. Her 3-month-old belly was slightly bulging. Her oval-shaped face had now become a little rounder, and her whole body was rounder than before. Feeling his gaze, Tang Minjing touched her belly and stood behind Mrs. Tang. Mrs. Tang sneered and said in a sarcastic tone, Here comes the one who abandons me. Chapter 255. Li Xiao was very angry, which could be heard from his voice. In the study, Qin Shuhua was standing not far from Mrs. Tang. Behind Mrs. Tang was Tang Minjing, and next to her was Tang Jinghao. Except for Tang Mingqing, everyone in the Tang family was there. Li Xiqing already knew what was going on. Looking at his father, there was no fear in his cold eyes. He asked slowly, Why? Li Xiao was amused and asked, Why? You did this yourself. How dare you ask why? Then he grabbed 2 pieces of paper from the table and threw them at Li Xiqing's face. However, the paper was too light and Li Xiqing caught it in his hand. At first glance, he saw the eye-catching title, Lie Detector Test Report. Looking down slowly, Li Xiqing skimmed through the words. His cold eyes narrowed and a deep thought flashed through his mind. Li Xiao was so angry that his hands were trembling. Pointing at Li Xiqing, he yelled, I should have forced you to join the army. Look at your brothers. They didn't do this to me. In Li Xiao's study there were all kinds of medals of honor hanging. That mighty and domineering military uniform clearly displayed Li Xiao's extraordinary military rank. Not only was he a major general, but even his 2 sons had done him a great job. Li Beixing had become a major at a young age, and his younger son Li Jinan was already a captain. Li Xiqing had been a maverick since childhood. When other children were playing with mud and peeing the bed, he began to study the map of the world, determined to be the second Columbus and discover the new world. When other children were learning to sing and dance, he held a bamboo high and yelled to defeat fascism. While other children fell in love at puberty, he was immersed in his studies. He learned everything he should and shouldn't learn in one breath. Later on he hired several tutors, but none of them could stay. They were all scared away by his terrifying humility. Finally, when Li Xiqing graduated from college, Li Xiao wanted him to be a soldier like himself, to protect the country and do his part for the country. But this kid actually registered a company on his own without saying a word. Moreover, it was already a small-scale company with a sizable income. She had thought that she did not need to worry about Li Xiqing anymore. However, she did not expect that no matter how sensible and decent a man was, he would still make mistakes that all men would make. Li Xiao was so angry that he couldn't even eat. After reading both pages, Li Xiqing looked away and said, Was the lie detector experiment done in front of you? Li Xiao trembled with anger and shouted, Do you still need to do it in front of me? This report already explains everything. So you didn't see it with your own eyes? Li Xiqing's voice was cold. Then why do you think she is telling the truth? You bastard. Mrs. Tang was so angry that she wanted to punch Li Xiqing but was stopped by Tang Minjing. Mom, don't. Tang Minjing sobbed and hugged Mrs. Tang. Xiqing. Qin Shuhua went to protect her son and said, Watch your words. Don't you know whether you did it or not? I also heard what Oming said and asked your father to apply for a lie detector. It turned out that Minjing was not lying. Chapter 256. Outsiders? Mrs. Tang screamed. If it were not for Su Qianxi, our Tang Minjing would have become your wife long ago. She would not have to suffer like this. Li Xiqing looked at Mrs. Tang, narrowed his eyes and said thoughtfully, It turns out that shamelessness is hereditary. I have learned something new today. Tang Minjing and Mrs. Tang's expressions immediately changed. Tang Jinghao's face darkened as he roared, Li Xiqing. We are here today to ask for an explanation. Don't change the subject. What a coincidence. I also want an explanation from you. Li Xiqing rolled up the test report in his hand and slowly sneered. Your daughter not only accused me of slander, framed my wife, caused my child to miscarry, and even framed my wife in the street. Now, with her pregnant belly, she insists that it was me who did it and wants to forcibly destroy my relationship with my wife. What explanation do you have for me? Although he had gotten justice one by one, he had not only screwed up Fu Zetian, but also shut down Tang Menjing and the Tang family's companies one by one. He had also made Tang Menjing use all her tricks, but in the end she reaped what she sowed. However, since they had come to him, there was no reason for him to let them go. Tang Jinghao did not expect to be accused by Li Xiqing before he could say anything. Hearing Tang Menjing's accusations, he looked at his daughter. Tang Menjing noticed that her father was shaken. She immediately gritted her teeth and sobbed, "Li Xiqing, you know very well whether it was you or not. If it were not you, do you think I would have let that person touch me? If it were not your child, do you think I would have kept it? You know I like you. That's why I did this, brother Xiqing. Then let's do a blood test." Li Xiqing's face was cold, indifferent to her words. He looked at his father and said, "Let's do a DNA test to prove your son's innocence." No one would be willing to bear such a heavy responsibility for nothing. Li Xiao knew his son's character very well. Although he was not a gentleman, he dared to admit what he had done. If he said he did not, then he did not. However, lie detector. How do you explain that? Tang Jinghao was furious. A woman is willing to be with you and give birth to your child. You not only denied it, but also humiliated her in such a way. Li Xiqing, you are an animal. Then what's the one who wants to rely on the beast wholeheartedly? Tang Jinghao was speechless and trembled with anger. After a long while he cursed, "You are an asshole. The facts are in front of you and you still deny it. Do you really think my daughter is a pushover?" Li Xiqing sneered and said coldly, "Don't worry, I have evidence." Tang asked, "Tang Menjing, I Li and Li?" Suddenly her pocket vibrated. She took out her phone and unlocked it. It was a text message. "Oh no, Z is working for Li Xiqing. He has gotten the surveillance video of you drunk in Australia." Seeing this, Tang and Mying Li Heng Tang. However, the child in her belly was his. Why should she panic? At that moment, Lu Sa knocked on the door, walked in and said, "Sir, Mr. Li, there is a Miss Cheng. She said she is Mr. Li's assistant and is here to deliver something for him." Chapter 257. Cheng Yu quickly came in, holding a tablet in her hand. "Boss." Cheng Yu shouted and then nodded slightly to the people around her who were meeting for the first time. She was inevitably nervous. Especially when she saw all kinds of things about soldiers in the study, she couldn't help trembling in awe. "Don't be nervous," Li Xiqing said lightly. "Give it to me." Cheng Yu was embarrassed, opened it and handed the tablet over. However, her eyes were involuntarily attracted by the only acquaintance in the room besides Li Xiqing. Tang Menjing was really pregnant. Her belly was slightly bulging and she looked a little fat. At this moment, her eyes were red and swollen. Looking at her, she seemed to be nervous. Cheng Yu slightly raised an eyebrow, and a bit of contempt flashed in her eyes. She knew all the truth. That night in Australia, after Li Xiqing left, she was also driven away. However, Cheng Yu still couldn't bear to leave such a drunk woman at the door. After thinking about it, she still went back. However, when she went back, the door of the room had been closed. She tried to knock, put her ear on the door for a moment, and there was a sound that made her blush and her heart beat faster. The door of the hotel was very soundproof and Cheng Yu could only hear her shouting, "Brother Xiqing?" At that time her first reaction was, "Did boss come back?" She tried to call him and found that he had arrived at the airport. The next day she got up early and wanted to call him. At that time she saw a white man with blue eyes and blonde hair walking out of the room in a hurry. That man was definitely not Li Xiqing. Now he wanted to blame it on boss? Did he really think that she was just a decoration? Li Xiqing's fingers slid a few times on the tablet, using the leather of the tablet to make the screen face everyone. On the screen, the high-definition surveillance video clearly showed Li Xiqing's face, and the surveillance video showed 3 rooms in a row. Li Xiqing walked to the door of a room and knocked. Tang Menjing inside opened the door. Tang Jinghao saw his daughter clinging to Li Xiqing with his own eyes and suddenly felt ashamed. She was wearing so revealing that even he, as a father, felt. Not to mention Li Xiqing, a young man. However, to her surprise, he pushed her away and looked at her with a cold face, colder and scarier than usual. What made Tang Jinghao feel even more humiliated was that Tang Menjing was crying and throwing a tantrum, clinging to him shamelessly. Her snow-white breasts were pressed against him, too big for him to look at. This kind of seduction, which man could resist? Corrupting the reputation of the sect. Tang Jinghao turned around and glared at Tang Menjing. The latter shivered and hid behind Mrs. Tang. Looking at the screen coldly, Li Xiqing stared at Tang Menjing with his sharp eyes. Tang Menjing blushed and gritted her teeth. I was drunk that day, but the baby is yours. She was sure that the man that night was definitely Li Xiqing. It couldn't be anyone else's. Impossible. Qing Yu's face was filled with contempt. Death was at hand, yet he was still so stubborn. But in front of the Tang family he couldn't show it too obviously. Chapter 258. The sudden black screen made both Li Xiqing and Qing Yu dumbfounded. What happened? Qing Yu was a bit dazed, taking the tablet and turning it around. There was power and it was full. However, after looking through the entire folder, she could not find the video that she had painstakingly cut from Australia. What happened? Qing Yu looked dumbfounded. It was playing just now. Why did it suddenly stop? The video was at a critical moment. After Li Xiqing was dragged into the room by her that day, he had pushed her away and left before he could even step into the room. However, the video stopped at this part. In the eyes of those who did not know the truth, it was too easy for them to imagine. The atmosphere around Li Xiqing suddenly became cold, and he said in a deep voice, "Solve it." Qing Yu shrunk her neck and said, "I'll call Luo Zhan." Thinking about it, she said, "I'll pick it up." When she called Luo Zhan, he was sleeping soundly. Seeing it was Qing Yu, he immediately picked up the phone and shouted, "Hey Qing, did you miss me?" Li Xiqing was immediately disgusted. He grunted coldly and said, "Yes, I missed you." Luo Zhan suddenly shivered, sat up and said, "It's you. Oh, look at my old eyes. I thought it was Assistant Qing." But when he took it out, it was Qing Yu. Luo Zhan wondered why Li Xiqing would call him with Qing Yu's phone. "What about the thing I asked you to do? It's done. Did Assistant Qing give it to you?" "Yes." "Then? That's it. Gone." Luo Zhan was silent, and he had a faint ominous feeling in his heart. What happened? Li Xiqing briefly explained, and Luo Zhan immediately turned over and turned on the computer. When he turned it on, he saw the blatant provocation on the computer screen, which made Luo Zhan furious. "Top Hacker Z, welcome back." Behind it was a big smiley face. "Damn." Luo Zhan was furious. "I was hacked." Then she ignored Li Xiqing and started typing on the keyboard. The thief who invaded his computer acted very poorly. It could be seen that he had tried his best to hide his whereabouts, but in Luo Zhan's eyes, there was still nowhere to hide. Luo Zhan easily found the IP of the intrusion. He hacked in and found that this person turned out to be one of the few IPs he had tracked. A gunman hired by Tang Menjing? F***CK. Luo Zhan was furious. "It's this guy again." Li Xiqing's face darkened and he asked in a deep voice, "Where is the video?" "Video?" Luo Zhan's eyes widened, and he immediately clicked into the encrypted folder. "It's over. I've been infiltrated." Luo Zhan was too conceited and did not set the firewall high. Instead, he set a small trap in the firewall. He didn't expect that this person would so brazenly hack into his account and destroy his video, even if he had to risk the possibility of being discredited. Luo Zhan was going crazy. "What should we do? The video is gone." "Ha." Li Xiqing chuckled in a low voice, but there was an indescribable gloominess and danger in his laughter. Luo Zhan shivered. He knew that Li Xiqing was really angry. Cleverly he shouted, "I'll go steal another one. Wait for me for 10 minutes. No, 8 minutes, 7 minutes. As he spoke, he put down the phone and climbed over the wall to find the hotel. However, the folder that should have stored the video of that day was empty. Chapter 259. Hearing Luo Zhan's curse, Li Xiqing already knew what was going on. Holding Qing Yu's cell phone, the more he held it, the tighter it became. His face was so cold that Qing Yu took a step back. It's over, it's over." Li Xiqing was really angry this time. Even Qing Yu had never seen him so angry. Did Luo Zhan really make a mistake at this moment? Seeing Li Xiqing's expression, Mrs. Tang sneered smugly in her heart. "Is this your evidence? I saw with my own eyes that you went into my daughter's room. The video just now happened to be cut off at that place, so the result was self-evident." Li Xiao was disappointed, slammed the table and roared, "Li Xiqing, kneel." Li Xiqing threw the cell phone back to Qing Yu. Although his face was gloomy, his tone was indescribably calm. "You go back first." Qing Yu heard that and hurriedly nodded, running away. Li Xiqing's father was even scarier than Li Xiqing. Sure enough, the boy still needed to be punished. However, would Li Xiqing really kneel? If he did, wouldn't he be admitting that he was innocent? The more Qing Yu thought about it, the more she felt it was inappropriate. After thinking about it, she picked up the cell phone and called Su Qianxi. After Qing Yu left, Li Xiqing closed the door of the study, turned around and walked to Li Zhao's desk. "Not me." Li Xiqing's eyes were firm, but there was a hint of mockery in them. You are my father. If you ask me to kneel, I dare not refuse, but then kneel. Mrs. Tang was furious. You little bastard. Bah. Shut up. Tang Jinghao stopped her, but seeing Li Xiqing like this, he felt indescribably happy. Wasn't the boy very capable? Let his father deal with him. Unexpectedly, Li Xiqing did not kneel. Instead, he stretched out his long fingers and slowly unbuttoned his suit, as elegant as a gentleman about to attend a ceremony. His eyes were cold and deep and his face was not very good. However, every move of hers was indescribably graceful. Tang Minjing was so excited that she covered her belly with her hand. It was great that she was pregnant with his child. Li Xiqing took off his suit jacket, threw it on the ground and said, "Come on." Li Xiao was a little stunned, but then he seemed to think of something. He gritted his teeth angrily, stared at Li Xiqing and roared, "Li Xiqing! I will never admit to something I have not done." Li Xiqing's eyes were full of sarcasm. You know that, don't you? The descendants of the Li clan could not disobey the orders of their elders. If he disobeyed, he would be punished according to the family rules. Li Xiqing was ready to be punished by the family. Frightened, Qin Shuhua quickly shielded Li Xiqing behind her and said, Xiqing, let's talk this out. Don't make your father angry. Be a good boy and kneel down to apologize. I said it's not me, so it's not me. Li Xiqing interrupted Qin Shuhua. My last name is Li and their last name is Tang. Why do you believe them instead of me? Mom, Dad, I'm very disappointed. Li Xiao was infuriated. He turned around and reached for the military whip behind his desk. Chapter 260. Looking at the military whip, Li Xiqing's eyes darkened. Tang Jinghao and his wife saw it and were amused. Tang Minjing panicked and shouted, Uncle Li, don't. Years ago he refused to follow Li Zhao's order to join the army. He knelt in the ancestral hall for a day and was whipped, but he did not change his mind. Li Xiqing was good at everything, but he was too stubborn. Once he made up his mind, even if you beat him to death, there would only be one result. The Tang family knew it and so did the Li family. Li Xiao just wanted to scare him and did not really want to beat him. Seeing the obvious disappointment in his eyes, he felt bad. Holding the whip in his hand, Li Xiao deliberately waved it in front of Li Xiqing and said coldly, Let me ask you again. Did you do it? That was a military whip which he had tasted before. It was very scary. One hit from the whip was enough to break his skin. The last time he was beaten he had to stay in the hospital for half a month. However, he could not die. Looking at him and the whip in his hand, Li Xiqing said frankly, I did not do it. His voice was very firm. Li Zhao's anger subsided. Swinging the whip, he said coldly, Then let's do a DNA test. If his son said he did not do it, then he did not do it. A DNA test would make the Tang family give up. Dumbfounded, Mrs. Tang blurted out, Stop? She had been looking forward to it for so long. Why would he stop? Li Xiao laughed and said, He is not your son. Why do you care so much? Mrs. Tang was speechless. She choked and then said weakly, But your son? Yes, DNA test. Qin Shuhua was scared to death. She had been standing behind her son and almost cried. But now that Li Xiao had stopped hitting her, she was still scared. She sobbed and said, I believe you. Don't make your dad angry. Be good. Li Xiqing reached out and patted Qin Shuhua's back. It's okay. Don't cry. Feeling very upset, Mrs. Tang said, Are you just going to let it go? Are you too blind? You saw your son enter my daughter's room with your own eyes. Don't you need to take responsibility? I only saw your daughter seducing my son. Li Xiao shouted coldly. I will never allow such a woman to marry into the Li family. It's just a child. We don't even know if he belongs to our family. Even if he does, we can afford to raise a child. Qin Shuhua felt that something was off. Li Xiao, women shouldn't interrupt when men are talking. Li Xiao glared at Qin Shuhua. Tang Jinghao trembled with anger and bellowed, Good, Li Xiao, Li Xiqing. The evidence is right in front of you, yet you're still acting so shamelessly. I've really witnessed the extent of the Li clan's shamelessness. Didn't you want to do a DNA test? Let's do it. Amniocentesis will take 4 months. If we do it now. Tang Minjing's face was pale. Then we'll wait for 4 months. Tang Jinghao roared. Isn't it more than 3 months now? At that time, I will use that DNA report to slap you in the face. Saying that, Tang Jinghao walked out with his wife and daughter and ran into Su Qianxi, who was rushing back. Seeing Su Qianxi, the Tang family all looked unfriendly. Chapter 261. Hearing that, Su Qianxi felt as if her heart had been stabbed by a thorn, faintly aching. However, seeing the expressions of Mrs. Tang and Tang Jinghao, and then looking at Tang Menjing, Su Qianxi had a mocking smile on her face. Looking at her as if she was looking at a fool, she asked in the same voice, "Do you think I will believe you?" Tang Menjing gritted her teeth and was about to say something, but Su Qianxi had already walked into the study. "I am most afraid that you have been framed without knowing it." Li Zhao's voice came out. Su Qianxi paused when she was about to open the door. Li Xiqing was still calm and his voice came out unhurriedly. He said, "It's impossible." That better be the case. But you have to keep an eye on your wife. Tang Menjing is much more cunning than your wife. Don't let your wife know or it will be hard to clean up. Li Xiao did not have a good impression of the girl from the Tang family. After what happened today, he felt that this woman was not a good person. "Okay," Li Xiqing responded. Qin Shuhua said, "The lie detector is fine. Now we just need to do a DNA test." She took her hand back from the doorknob and slightly tightened, hanging on her side. There was nothing wrong with the lie detector. In other words, the child in Tang Menjing's belly was really Li Xiqing's? "Don't tell her what happened today," Li Xiqing said. "I am afraid she will overthink it." Su Qianxi stood at the door, feeling as if her heart had been stabbed by an awl. What did he mean by he was afraid she would overthink it? Was he afraid she would cry or make a scene? How could he? He had lived through it all in his previous lifetime and this was just another one? When Li Xiqing walked out of the study, he heard Lu Sa calling for the second young mistress. However, he looked around and did not see Su Qianxi. Lu Sa came out with a fruit plate and asked in surprise, "Where is the second young mistress? Has she been here?" Li Xiqing asked. "Yes. I just saw her in the study. Didn't you see her?" Hearing that, Li Xiqing had an ominous feeling. He went out and drove back to the house. Su Qianxi had returned home and was helping Nanny Rong cook. Seeing him return, she smiled and shouted, "You're back. Come wash your hands and get ready for dinner." There didn't seem to be anything strange in his smile. Li Xiqing stepped forward and asked, "Did you just go to the old house?" Su Qianxi asked. Su Qianxi's smile froze and she nodded. "Yes, I saw you were busy so I came back." "Lu Sa told you?" "Yes." "Let's eat." She put the plate in her hand on the table, but her body suddenly felt heavy. Li Xiqing hugged her from behind and buried his face in her neck. Su Qianxi's body stiffened, and her heart suddenly began to tremble. His trembling was frightening and hopeless. Li Xiqing noticed her uneasiness and thought she was nervous and shy. His lips curled into a relaxed smile as he whispered, "What should I do? I haven't seen you for only one afternoon and I miss you already." "Liar, liar." Su Qianxi could not hold it back and her tears rolled down. She took his hand away and wiped her tears. She turned around awkwardly and said hurriedly, "I'll go get the dishes." Chapter 262. During dinner, although Su Qianxi and Li Xiqing were face to face, neither of them spoke first. Nanny Rong also clearly felt something was wrong. The atmosphere was not right. Everything was wrong. However, everything was fine before they left the house in the afternoon. After dinner, Su Qianxi rushed to wash the dishes. Seeing that she was not in a good mood, Nanny Rong let her be. After washing the dishes, it was after 7 p.m. Nanny Rong cleaned up and went home. Li Xiqing sat on the sofa in the living room, handling the urgent documents that Qingyu had just sent over. So peaceful. It seemed no different from usual. However, Nanny Rong still felt a bit uneasy. "Nanny Rong, you can go home now." Su Qianxi smiled and wiped her hands with a clean cloth. Nanny Rong thought for a moment and whispered to Su Qianxi, "When you are unhappy, you can bully a man and be happy." Su Qianxi couldn't help smiling and nodded. After Nanny Rong left, Su Qianxi went upstairs and did not disturb Li Xiqing. After the shower, Su Qianxi climbed into bed and quickly fell asleep. Tired. Being tortured by him in the morning until the afternoon, Su Qianxi was not only physically tired, but also mentally tired. It was said that people were prone to nightmares when they were exhausted. Su Qianxi did not know if it was a nightmare or not. She saw Li Xiqing lying in the abandoned warehouse, eyes closed, hands tied behind him, and a bundle of detonators tied in front of him. The fire was raging. The sky was red and the iron was red. The entire abandoned warehouse was filled with the roar of the fire. Seeing this, Su Qianxi burst into tears. Without hesitation, she rushed in, picked him up and tried to wake him up. However, Li Xiqing did not seem to be awake at all. She took the detonators off him and used all her strength to drag him out. He did not wake up, but she could not see clearly because of the smoke. Her strength was getting weaker and weaker. She tried her best to push him out of the fire, but her vision was getting blurry. Vaguely, Su Chinsi seemed to see a figure coming this way. She raised her hand and wanted to shout, but her voice was as soft as a mosquito. What did she say? Her heart aching, Su Chinsi struggled and shouted, "Help him, help!" He was woken up by her and found that she was soaked. His hands seemed to be clutching something tightly. His face was already covered in tears, and his legs were flailing about. He was like a child begging for help in despair and sorrow. Li Xiqing's heart ached. He held her firmly and patted her back gently, whispering, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I'm here." Su Chinsi cried even harder and snuggled into his arms, seemingly unconsciously shouting, "It's not her, it's me. Mr. Li, Mr. Li." This form of address again. This form of address was filled with fear and alienation. Why did she call him that? Li Xiqing had never understood why. Su Chinsi gradually calmed down, but she was already soaked. Her wet and warm body clung to his, making Li Xiqing a bit restless. However, hearing what she said next, Li Xiqing's heart was aching. "Sorry, Mr. Li, I didn't mean to fall in love with you. I'm sorry," she sobbed softly, helpless and sad. Chapter 263. Tang Minjing stayed at home, carefully writing down every word and recording it as a mother's diary for 10 months. Dark ink appeared on the paper, and Tang Minjing's face was full of a sweet smile. "Baby, this is the 14th week since God sent you to me. Although your father does not want to admit your existence, I love you and look forward to your arrival. Baby, today Mom is suspected by everyone again. Everyone thinks that you are not Dad's child, but only Mom knows that you are a child of the Li family, the flesh and blood of the Li family. Sooner or later, Mom will bring you back to the Li family and become a legitimate descendant of the Li family. Baby, today I took a lie detector test. Sorry, the expert said it might cause radiation to the fetus, but I still did it. I want your father to recognize me and you and drive the bad woman away. Baby, Grandma finally said she would help me. I'm so happy. With the help of Grandma and Grandpa, I will definitely take you back to the Li family and make you a child of the Li family. Are you happy? I'm so happy. Baby, today Daddy was almost beaten by Grandpa. I was so scared. If Daddy was beaten, then I would never be able to take you back to the Li family. Fortunately, Grandpa did not do it. He chose to believe Daddy, not Mommy. Remember, Grandpa is a big bad guy. When you grow up, you must avenge Mommy. However, there is good news. Although Grandma seems to help Daddy, she has always believed that the baby you are carrying is the child of the Li family. Grandma loves you and Mommy. When you grow up, you must be good to Grandma. Signed, Love, Mom. Tang Minjing pulled off the cap of the pen and put it aside. She stretched and felt sleepy again. Since she was pregnant, she could not get enough sleep. But when she just went to bed, her phone rang. It was her private number. She picked it up and heard a familiar voice panting. Minjing, I need your help. All my accounts have been hacked. I don't have any money with me. Please give me some cash. Hearing the voice, Tang Minjing was disgusted and shouted, You have the nerve to ask me for money? If you had not dropped the ball at the critical moment last time, I would not have ended up like that. Hey, didn't I save you? If I didn't help you yesterday, do you think you would be as good as you are today? Now, because I helped you, Z and that psycho Li Xiqing sent people to search me everywhere. Now all my accounts and things have been hacked, and a secret reward has been issued. Now I can't go home. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be like this. Tang Minjing frowned and sneered. Help me? What did you do for me? Yesterday, if I hadn't hacked that video in time, you would have been beaten to death by that old antique father of yours, right? If your father finds out that you've gotten a bastard out of nowhere. What do you mean? Tang Minjing was angry. You're the bastard. This is Brother Xiqing's flesh and blood. There was a silence on the other side of the phone. After a long while, she said, Do you really think that the man that night was Li Xiqing? What do you mean? Tang Minjing was emotional. That man is heartless. If he doesn't want it, I want it. Chapter 264. There was silence again. After a long while, he said, Anyway, I helped you yesterday. Can you give me some cash? A few $100s would be fine. Let me find a safe place to stay for a while. Li Xiqing is chasing me like a dog. Su Chinsi's face darkened. She looked at Su Chinsi. Tang Minjing was a bit disdainful, but she knew that the guy would not lie to her. Where are you? I will have someone send it to you. The guy quickly gave her the address and Tang Minjing asked the driver to send it over. However, she did not know that the Tang family's house was already under surveillance. This hacker was not as good as Luo Zhan. If he forced his way in, he would be discovered and wanted. He was Tang Minjing's gunman. When he was desperate, he would definitely come to her. Li Xiqing had calculated everything and asked Qingyu to arrange for someone to watch over the Tang family. As long as there was something wrong with the Tang family, Li Xiqing's men would immediately notice and report back to their superiors. Go after him. Qingyu only said one word. After that, he picked up his phone and dialed the big boss's number to briefly explain the situation. Li Xiqing's voice was cold. Find him even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Yes, sir. After a day of classes, Su Qinxi saw Li Xiqing's black Maybach at the gate of the school. Her classmate recognized the car and said enviously, "Your husband is here to pick you up again." Su Qinxi smiled, quickly walked over and sat in the passenger seat. Why are you here? To take you back to the old house. Li Xiqing took her bag and helped her fasten the seat belt. His voice was rare and gentle. Mr. Song is visiting Grandpa and Mom and Dad. Grandpa hopes that we can have dinner together. When in the Maldives, Captain Li had never thought about having dinner with Song Yifan. After the press conference a few days ago, his attitude toward Song Yifan had changed a lot. After all, their identities were different. Whether he was related to Su Qianxi or not, his attitude of protecting Su Qianxi was enough to earn people's respect. Back at the old house, Song Yifan was surprised to see Su Qianxi. Immediately standing up from the sofa, Song Yifan, who had always been elegant, was at a loss. He called, Su Qianxi, you're back. She felt warm and nodded. Yes, I'm back. Seeing this harmonious scene, old Master Li smiled even more brightly and said, Little Song, you and your daughter haven't seen each other for a long time, right? You two have a good chat. I'm going to lie down first. I'm getting old and it's uncomfortable to sit for too long. As he spoke, he got up to leave. Let me walk you there, Song Yifan suggested. That's fine. You can have a nice chat with Su Qianxi. I can walk on my own. Captain Li was a bit annoyed and walked away with his cane. Li Xiqing sat down with Su Qianxi. Song Yifan was obviously a bit nervous. Looking at Su Qianxi, he asked guiltily, You won't blame me for what I said in front of the media that day, right? The situation was urgent, so I didn't think too much about it. It's okay. His indifferent tone was no different from usual. Song Yifan let out a sigh of relief. However, seeing her, he was still nervous and did not even know where to put his hands. Seeing the fruit on the table, he suddenly had an idea and said, Are you thirsty? Let me peel an apple for you. Then he picked up the fruit knife on the table and picked up an apple that he had brought as a gift. He was about to peel it. It's okay, Dad. Chapter 265. Seeing Song Yifan's reaction, Su Qianxi swallowed what she was about to say. Feeling embarrassed, Song Yifan blushed and quickly bent down to pick up the fruit knife that had fallen. However, the moment he bent down, his forehead hit the transparent glass of the table, making a clear dong sound. Su Qianxi was shocked and asked, Are you okay? Song Yifan felt even more embarrassed. His face was as red as when he performed on stage for the first time. Shaking her head, Su Qianxi looked at his hand and exclaimed. Song Yifan looked down and saw the red liquid coming out of his hand. It turned out that he had been caught off guard and held the fruit knife the wrong way. His palm felt a little itchy when the knife was facing him, but it didn't hurt much. However, Su Qianxi reached out and took the fruit knife from his hand. She complained, How could I not be careful? Su Qianxi sat across from Song Yifan. The coffee table was not big and Su Qianxi could easily reach his hand. Looking at his palm, Su Qianxi saw that his palm had been dyed red with blood, which looked a bit scary. Li Xiqing was a bit jealous. However, seeing Song Yifan's silly look, he could not help but sympathize with him. Forget it. Just this once. Lu Sa, bring me the first aid kit, Li Xiqing called. Lu Sa quickly brought the kit over. Seeing the blood on Song Yifan's hand, she gasped and said, How did you get hurt? Wrap it up. I can do it myself. Thank you. Song Yifan smiled gently. Compared to when he was with Su Qianxi, he was much more indifferent. However, when he looked back and saw Su Qianxi looking for medicine in the first aid kit, he immediately returned to his silly look. Su Qianxi found a band-aid and carefully stuck it on his hand. However, after she did it, she found that Song Yifan's eyes were slightly red. Song Yifan blinked. Seeing her look up, he smiled and said, Thank you, Su Qianxi. Su Qianxi smiled. You're welcome. We are father and daughter, aren't we? Hearing that, Song Yifan's slightly red eyes suddenly became even redder, and there was a clear layer of tears in his eyes. But very quickly he suppressed it. His voice was extremely low, and with a feeling of oppression he said, "Yes, father and daughter." Taking a deep breath, Song Yifan realized that he was not calm enough. He stood up and said, "I'm going to the bathroom. Over there." Li Xiqing pointed in a direction. Song Yifan quickly turned around and disappeared around the corner. Seeing Song Yifan's look, Su Qianxi's eyes became a bit red. Seeing her strange look, he asked in a low voice, "Do you want to go to the bathroom too?" She glared at him and pushed him away. Li Xiqing smiled, reached out to rub her hair and whispered, "He is very happy." "Me too." Su Qianxi's eyes were red as she looked up at him. "I have a father too." Li Xiqing smiled and pinched her face. "And me?" Song Yifan sorted out his emotions and looked much calmer after he came back. After having dinner with the Li family and confirming their relationship, Song Yifan left with satisfaction. Chapter 266. Boss, we didn't catch him. He ran away. Hearing that, Li Xiqing became cold and asked in a deep voice, "You didn't ask them to help?" "Yes." Qingyu was a bit embarrassed. "But I was cheated." Li Xiqing was silent for a moment. Qingyu's heart was pounding and she quickly said, "But I took a picture of him. Didn't Luo Zhan hack his computer? We should be able to find out his identity." "Okay, send it to me." "Yes, sir." He hung up the phone and received a text message from Qingyu. He opened it and downloaded it. It was a young man looking a little flustered, but his facial features were clear. Su Qianxi accidentally saw it and her heart skipped a beat. Her pupils suddenly shrank and she blurted out, "Rong Rue." Li Xiqing looked over curiously. "Do you know him? This is Tang Menjing's shooter?" Li Xiqing nodded. Su Qianxi's heart was pounding. It was him, Rong Rue, Qingyu's husband. But why did Rong Rue become Tang Menjing's target and the main force of Tang Menjing's previous plan to destroy her? However, when Rong Rue pursued Qingyu, he was very enthusiastic. In the end, he won her heart and gave birth to a lovely daughter. How could he be related to Tang Menjing now? In the fire, Su Qianxi had seen him, but she had always thought it was an illusion and never suspected him. Now thinking about it, variables. There were too many variables in this life. There were always two lines in Su Qianxi's mind. They were clearly close but they could not connect. Why was Rong Rue on the same side as Tang Menjing? Why did Rong Rue pursue Qingyu? At that time, what kind of role did Qingyu play between Li Xiqing and herself? Su Qianxi suddenly felt a splitting headache. Everything suddenly poured over her like a tide, making it difficult for her to digest for a while. "What's wrong?" Li Xiqing saw her strangeness. Su Qianxi's pupils calmed down. She slowly shook her head and said, "This person is called Rong Rue from the capital." "How do you know him?" Su Qianxi suddenly did not know how to explain. Looking at Li Xiqing she said, "When I was dreaming, I dreamed." "You dreamed of it?" Li Xiqing felt it was a bit ridiculous. However, thinking of how she sobbed in her dream last night, he swallowed what he wanted to ask and took her in his arms. "Okay, let's go home first." "I'm serious." She was worried that he would not believe it. "Rong Rue is a very dangerous person. He will hurt us. You must be careful of him and Tang Menjing. They are in cahoots and Qingyu? What does this have to do with her?" She nodded and grabbed his sleeve, fearing that he would not believe her. Blushing, she looked into his eyes. "He has a good relationship with Qingyu, so. As he spoke, the distance between them grew closer and closer. Today she was wearing a pink round-neck dress. He was a head taller than her, and from his angle, he could clearly see her beautiful and delicate collarbone. There were faint marks on it. Chapter 267. Li Xiqing's eyes darkened. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. Caught off guard, Su Qianxi stared at him with her eyes wide open. However, her lips and teeth were soon pried open. A strong arm wrapped around her waist and held her firmly. His kiss was very light and soft. Su Qianxi only felt that there was a feather gently tickling her heart, and her heart was intoxicated beyond belief. "Ouch, ouch." Captain Li's voice came out. Su Qianxi suddenly opened her eyes and pushed him away out of reflex. Her face suddenly became hot. Turning her head, she saw the teasing smile on Captain Li's face and blushed even more. She called, "Grandpa, I understand. Young people are always hot. But you should pay attention to the occasion." Su Qianxi's face became even hotter. Looking up, she saw the smile in his eyes. She gave him a stare and pinched his hand. "Don't laugh." However, Li Xiqing smiled even more brightly. Taking her into his arms, he looked at Captain Li and said, "Grandpa, let's go back." "Go, go, go. It's late. Time to go." Late at night? What did that mean? Su Qianxi suddenly felt that she was not pure. She struggled in his arms, but he did not let go. He said, "Yes, it's late. Grandpa, rest early. We will go back to sleep." "Okay, make a baby for Grandpa to hold." "Okay." Su Qianxi blushed even more. Unable to break free, she simply buried herself in his arms and pretended to be dead. Li Xiqing carried her in his arms and said, "Let's go home and make a baby." "Stop it. That's so embarrassing." Su Qianxi wanted to cover his mouth. Captain Li laughed. Li Xiqing directly carried her, opened the door of the passenger seat and put her in. However, just as he opened the door of the driver's seat, a slender and elegant figure appeared in front of him not far from the car. Tang Minjing saw Li Xiqing put Su Qianxi in her seat with her own eyes. She pinched her arms and almost bit her lower lip. Noticing that he had noticed her, the jealousy in her eyes suddenly disappeared. She forced a smile and said, "Brother Xiqing, I have something to tell you." He did not even bother to roll his eyes at her. Sitting in the driver's seat, he drove away. Tang Minjing's face was covered in exhaust. Her fingers dug deep into her arms and she was even angrier. His phone rang. It was an unknown number. It must be that useless Rong Rue again. Tang Minjing hung up and turned off her phone. Holding the phone, Rong Rue stood on the side of the road, his heart sinking. "Useless cousin, she is just a woman that Li Xiqing doesn't want. If your family knows that you are working for this woman instead of going back to inherit the family business, they will definitely kill you." An enchanting woman yawned. Her long nails were painted with red nail polish. "Why don't you go back and be a good young master? How good would that be?" "Shut up." Rong Rue clenched his phone and threw it on the ground. "Rong Anna, it's none of your business." Rong Anna touched her nose, feeling a bit embarrassed. "Well, it's my fault. Where is Aunt Rong Xian?" "Waiting for you at home and my father and your parents." That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.